Chapter 2454. Waves of sound waves assaulted, incredibly frightening. This time, the insects were prepared. They had already attacked the moment Ling Han appeared. If Ling Han did not parry, he would only be shaken away by the sound waves, but if he attacked, his speed would definitely be slowed, giving the winged insects a chance to retreat. Their intelligence had improved. Ling Han was astonished. He had once tried to communicate with these insects, but he had only discovered that they were chaotic and had no intelligence at all. Now they actually knew how to ambush and rescue a siege. How could their intelligence have increased so much in a short few days? Ling Han did not believe it. There should be a truly intelligent insect that was connecting the dots, condensing this plate of loose sand into a rope. To catch a thief, first catch the king. A thought flashed through his mind. If he could kill the king insect, then perhaps the sea of insects would collapse. But the sea of insects was vast, and where would he find such a king insect? Furthermore, since the king insect was intelligent, it would definitely hide itself. How could it be so easy to discover? The sound waves were already approaching. Ling Han collected his thoughts. He definitely could not miss this opportunity. Otherwise, if the insects broke through his sneak attack technique, the chances of success would be even lower. He attacked, and the endless power of time spread out. The attack waves instantly came to a screeching halt as if time had stopped. Ling Han charged straight through. Quang! The sound waves shattered like shattered crystals, turning into solid matter and falling down. Xiao, his figure flashed past. That winged insect was also affected by the flow of time. Its movements were ridiculously slow, and it was currently opening its mouth at Ling Han. A hidden arrow was already accumulating power and waiting to be released, exuding a dark luster. Ling Han gave a long howl and punched out, smashing toward the winged insect's throat. Poof! The tail of an arrow pierced through the nape of the winged insect's neck, but it immediately shattered. This was formed from rules. Once the winged insect died, it naturally had no more power to transform its rules into the form of an arrow. Ling Han's attack succeeded, and he immediately retreated, feeling his entire body empty. Just now, he had circulated the time law with all his might, almost draining himself dry. If not for his terrifying physical skills, he would have fallen to the ground. Clearly, he had only increased the power of the time flow by 20 to 30%, but the origin energy he had paid was a ton of increase. This price-performance ratio was truly pitifully low. But in any case, he had done something which made Ling Han very satisfied. He was like a god of war as he charged towards his own camp. After killing 2 winged insects in a row, even those insects seemed to be in awe. However, this caused their counterattack to become even more frenzied. Like a tsunami, they poured towards Ling Han. Ling Han was injured, but he did not circulate the indestructible heaven scroll. This had to be used at the most crucial moment. Not a single insect could stop him. When Ling Han rushed back to his team, his whole body was covered in green blood, emitting an incomparably foul stench. The fire hibiscus pressed down with her palm. Cyan flames danced and quickly burned the blood dry. However, strands of gray substance rose up. Just smelling it would make people dizzy and feel indescribably uncomfortable. Ling Han sat down and hurriedly began to recover. The fire hibiscus nodded and said, "Wait, you can rest a bit more. I'll do your part of the work." Ling Han killed 2 winged insects, greatly relieving the pressure on the team. No one could compare to this merit. Ling Han did not hold back. Although he still had boundless physical strength, who knew what other monsters would emerge from the nest? It was better to be careful and maintain his strength at a high level for a long time. With regards to the fire hibiscus's arrangement, naturally no one was dissatisfied. The threat of the winged insects was obvious to everyone. Moreover, the number of multi-legged insects and single-horned insects that Ling Han had killed were also innumerable. The remaining 2 winged insects revealed fear. They seemed to have survival instincts and treasured their lives more. They both flapped their wings and retreated to a farther place to attack. In this way, their threat decreased greatly. Everyone was struggling, but the sea of insects seemed to be endless. No matter how they killed until blood flowed all over the ground, they still did not feel it. This is not a solution. Everyone's expressions changed. They could still hold on, but the situation was worsening because the poison in their bodies was getting stronger and stronger, and it was affecting their battle prowess more and more. Wait a moment. Jia Lan made a strange gesture with her hands. Xiao, a shadow instantly flew out of her body and floated towards the depths of the nest. This shadow was tangible but not tangible. There were clearly many insects attacking it, but it was as if they did not exist. Heaven shadow technique. The fire hibiscus nodded. This is the best method to detect the enemy's situation. Even if we are discovered, we cannot stop it. It is tangible but not tangible, as if the world has turned into a shadow clone. After a while, Jia Lan's body trembled, and she suddenly opened her eyes. Her face was filled with shock. There's an insect queen continuously laying eggs, and it's not any slower than us killing them. Everyone was shocked. No wonder these insects could not be completely killed. There was an insect queen laying eggs at an astonishing speed. In other words, we cannot kill all of these insects, Ji Wuming said in a low voice. There is only one way, the fire hibiscus said. Ling Han nodded. We need to kill the insect queen. But how difficult would it be to kill the insect queen? They needed to go against the flow and kill their way to the insect queen. Only then would they have a chance to attack. This could be said clearly in a single sentence, but they had to do it. Everyone looked at the seawater of insects around them, and a feeling of helplessness rose up in their hearts. Fuck, this was too difficult. This is our only chance of survival. We must do it. However, they were all Emperor stars, and they had unparalleled willpower. They immediately steeled their resolve. They no longer had half of them rest and the other half defend. Instead, all of them attacked, going against the flow of the sea of insects. This was really too difficult. The sea of insects was endless, and every step forward required a bloody battle, which consumed a shocking amount of energy. At this moment, no one dared to hold back, and they all unleashed their ultimate moves. Celestial light was dazzling, and they forcibly raised their battle prowess to the Celestial King level. This made them invincible. They were like an invincible spear, breaking through the waves and charging into the depths of the nest. Meanwhile, Ling Han weighed the origin energy of heaven and earth in his hand. This had always been a weapon of deterrence, but today he could finally use it to show its might. They once again charged into the nest, and the space instantly expanded countless times. Attacks came from all directions. Where's the insect queen? Everyone asked. This place was shrouded in darkness, and they could not see very far. Jia Lan pointed at the mountain in front of them. Where exactly is it? Everyone hurriedly asked. They could guess that the insect queen was on the mountain, but they needed to know its exact location. Otherwise, how could they kill it? Jia Lan's expression was somewhat shocked. She still pointed at the mountain and said, "That's the insect queen." Everyone was startled at first, and then they reacted. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. The mountain they had arrived at was actually not the real mountain, but the insect queen itself. No wonder this fellow's spawning speed could catch up to their killing speed. It was the size of a mountain, and it could definitely give birth. Such a huge monster, how could they kill it? Where was its vital point? Regarding explosive chapters, I also want to celebrate the new year, so I have to keep updating. For chapters is the minimum. This is within my capabilities, but I can't do more. Brothers and sisters, please forgive me. Reading on my phone is more refreshing. Chapter 2456. Ling Han had never encountered such a dangerous situation before. In the past, no matter how dangerous it was, he always knew he could rely on the Black Tower, and the worst-case scenario was to hide inside the Black Tower. But now, he couldn't use the Black Tower, so he could only rely on himself. Under such circumstances, his fighting spirit didn't diminish in the slightest, but instead surged with strong confidence. Under the impact of his sound wave, the two large insects were slightly stifled, and he directly broke through. This roar contained his martial art will, and 9 out of 10 would be hit by such a sudden roar. Ling Han broke through, but he didn't take the opportunity to kill the two large insects, because he didn't have the time. He continuously teleported, and the peak was already close at hand. At this point, he could finally see clearly that the top of the mountain was indeed the head of the insect queen, and the entire top of the mountain was actually a mouth that was constantly devouring something. It was not a physical object, but a series of light shadows. However, Ling Han could sense that these rays of light contained astonishing energy. According to Wally, regardless of whether it was star stones, food, or celestial medicine, their essence was energy, but some were suitable to be absorbed, and some were not. The insect queen absorbed these energies, and it could continuously lay eggs. Ling Han sprinted. He wanted to kill his way in from the insect queen's mouth, directly attacking the root of the problem. It was at this moment that a strong gust of wind assaulted him, causing Ling Han to continuously stagger as he staggered backwards. This was because the insect queen had suddenly switched from inhaling to exhaling, releasing a powerful airflow that pushed Ling Han back continuously. Moreover, there were also symbols of the Great Tao in this airflow that contained the power of regulations. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to affect Ling Han with just its power alone. Ling Han operated the earth element regulation, and his body instantly became as heavy as a giant mountain. He forcefully stabilized himself, and then walked step by step towards the peak. The insects behind him had already quickly rushed over, but under the insect queen's hurricane, none of them could reach him. However, this didn't affect their attacks. Wang, 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 sound waves impacted, lightning roared, and arrows shot out from the dark. The two large insects also charged back. They were obviously close combat type, barging into the hurricane and chasing after Ling Han. Ling Han roared and advanced with all his might. Ling Han felt a sharp pain in his head, as if he had been whipped. It was so painful that he felt like his head was about to split open, and he couldn't help but want to hold his head and howl. He was startled at first, but immediately realized that this was the insect queen's spiritual attack. Thankfully, his mind had been tempered by the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. Otherwise, with just this one blow, it was possible that his mind would have exploded. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The insect queen continued to launch mental attacks at Ling Han's knowledge sea. This wasn't enough to kill Ling Han, but it was enough to give him a splitting headache and almost make him lose the ability to attack. Seeing that this was effective, the insect queen's breath became much less powerful, allowing the two insects to attack quickly. And when these two big worms wrapped themselves around Ling Han, it finally felt relieved. Although it did not stop its mental whipping, it began to inhale again, absorbing the energy of the light and shadow. Its life was to lay eggs, so if it hadn't encountered a survival crisis just now, how could it have stopped eating and laying eggs? A smile appeared on Ling Han's face, and he suddenly threw his tightly clenched left hand forward. Stinky worm, you still fell for it. He threw out 7 little red dots, which were like 7 little red balls. They were immediately thrown to the top of the mountain, and the insect queen was still absorbing the energy. The absorption power was astonishing, and there was no reaction at all. The 7 little red balls were sucked in. The insect queen was shocked, and it sent out a spiritual wave. It didn't know what it had eaten, but since it was Ling Han who had fed it, it definitely couldn't be anything good. Ling Han broke into a smile and said, "Explode." The whole mountain immediately trembled, and one could see multiple veined patterns glowing, as if something was about to rush out. What did Ling Han throw? Heaven and Earth origin energy. This was a terrifying killing weapon that could even kill a low-stage immortal king. Even if the insect queen's carapace was incomparably tough, if it exploded within its body, it would definitely be blasted to smithereens. And one had to say that the insect queen's carapace was truly tough. Even though the astral chi of heaven and earth had already exploded, it still didn't rush out. All of it was concentrated within the interior of the insect queen. From this, it could be seen that if it was directly thrown out, it would at most heavily injure the insect queen, or even lightly injure it. It was completely impossible to kill it. The entire mountain trembled violently. This was the body of the insect queen, and it had directly endured the explosion of 7 astral chi of heaven and earth. So what if its defenses were strong? Boom! The mountain peak erupted like a volcano, spewing out majestic flames. All the insects fell into a daze at the same time. It was as if the death of the insect queen had caused them to lose their mental support, their reason to continue living. But after a short while, these insects began to go berserk. Some of them ran out of the cave, while others continued to attack Ling Han and the others in a frenzy. Some of them were even killing each other. This was because they had lost the insect queen's coordination. They were completely dumbfounded, and felt that aside from themselves, everyone else was an enemy. Fight, 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 kill, kill. It was utter chaos. Ling Han and the others gathered together and all heaved a sigh of relief. Although there was still poison in their bodies, as long as they were given some time, they would be able to slowly expel it. Although there were still insects attacking them, this was already the end. They were calm and confident. But just at this moment, something strange happened. Whips suddenly shot out from every corner of the mountain, wrapping around the insects. Some of them directly wrapped around the insects, strangling them to death. But there were also some that didn't, and instead engaged in a fierce battle with the insects. What was going on? Why does this look a bit like a water vine? Ling Han suddenly said. These whips were originally like vines. Yes. Everyone nodded, a bad premonition rising in their hearts. From the moment they had been forced to this island, to the sudden fragrance of the immortal fruits, to this sea of insects, everything was strange, but it also seemed to be interconnected. This island was definitely inextricably linked to the water vines, otherwise they wouldn't have been forced here. Now that something similar had appeared, they couldn't help but feel that it was strange. The number of insects in the sea was still astonishing, but now there was only death and no way to replenish it. Their numbers were actually decreasing very quickly. The main thing was that there were too many of those water vines. Although many of them had been killed by the insects, they were the main force of the insect slaughter. I think everyone must be very confused. A voice suddenly rang out, and a person appeared in the air above the cave. It was a very young man dressed in white with an elegant demeanor. There was actually someone else here? Everyone's hearts rang with alarm. This was definitely a trap. From the moment they had been forced onto the island, it had been a trap. But even now, they still didn't know the purpose of this trap. Ling Han raised his voice and said, "Who are you? Do you want to give us an explanation?" "Of course." The white-clothed man nodded and smiled, appearing very amiable. "If it wasn't for giving you an explanation, why would I have appeared? I could have just directly killed all of you. Although you'll all die later. Happy New Year, everyone. I wish you luck in the new year. I wish you all the best. Reading on my phone is more refreshing." Chapter 2457. The truth came to light, and the culprit behind the scenes appeared. Ling Han laughed. "Then we've really troubled you." "It's no trouble. After all, you guys also solved a big problem for me. Moreover, you guys were my lucky stars when I left this place. To thank you for your contributions, it's only right to let you guys die in peace," the white-clothed man said, smiling. "You're the ghost," Hunyo said in annoyance. Thinking about it, everything was caused by this man, which made her very angry. The white-clothed man was not angry at all. "Where do you guys want to start understanding?" "First tell me who you are," Ji Wuming said calmly. He had experienced many storms in his last life, and finally became an invincible celestial king, so he naturally had his bearing. No matter how dangerous the situation was, he wouldn't be the slightest bit flustered. The white-clothed man smiled, clasped his hands at everyone, and said, "I'm called Hui, I named myself." Everyone looked at each other. What kind of stupid name was this? It didn't even have a surname. Moreover, even if it had a surname, who knew where he came from? "Oh, actually you guys have seen me long ago," Hui continued. Ling Han's gaze was fixed on him. After a while, he said in surprise, "This isn't your real body, but a spiritual body created by illusion." Pa Hui clapped his hands, his expression full of agreement, and even gave him a thumbs up. This wasn't Huey's true appearance. In fact, it was very likely that he wasn't human. Everyone looked at each other, and suddenly a thought popped up. "You're one of those water vines?" they said in unison. Aside from water vines, they really hadn't seen anything like it, unless it was an insect, but this possibility should be negligible. Hui laughed loudly. You guys guessed most of it right. However, I'm not one of those water vines, but those are my roots. Hiss. Everyone was shocked. Everyone had a vague guess how long the water vines were. They could rise from the depths of the sea all the way to the surface, and their length was astonishing. Every water vine should be a colossal creature, but now, these were only Huey's roots, so how colossal was his real body? Actually, Gray smiled and looked at everyone's faces before saying leisurely, the place where you are standing now is the inside of my main body. Hong, it was as if countless vital energy of heaven and earth had been cast into everyone's heads, causing them to be stunned into a daze. Wait a minute, Ling Han said solemnly, this island is your body. Hui clapped his hands. You guessed correctly. It was me who forced you all to my main body. You can also guess why I did it. You are a freak, how would others know? Bewitching Maiden Ro immediately said. However, the queen said, you want us to wage war against these insects, right? There really are a lot of smart people. Gray laughed out loud. These are the parasites in my body. Although I have boundless battle prowess, I am still a stalk of immortal grass after all. My divine abilities are limited. Moreover, these parasites reproduce extremely quickly, and the insect queen's defense is extremely strong. I can't do anything to it. Fortunately, you helped me get rid of it. Tell me, how can I not thank you? Fire Hibiscus said coldly, then cut the nonsense and take out 12 or 20 celestial fruits. Gray laughed loudly. It's useless even if I give them to you. A bunch of people who are about to die, why waste my vitality? Is this how you thank your savior? Ling Han asked. Gray shook his head. Firstly, this was a trap that I set up in the first place, and I did not ask for your help. Secondly, you all barged in for the sake of the celestial seed, and did not come to help me of your own accord. Thirdly, you all killed the insect queen for the sake of self-defense. He paused and then concluded, thus, I do not owe you anything, but I am a person who can distinguish between kindness and grudges, so I will express my thanks to you all. Everyone was speechless. This person was really shameless, and had elevated his shamelessness to a glorious level. Then no matter what, he was useless. As they spoke, a large number of insects died. The original sea of insects was now sparse, and even the powerful pincer insect was entangled by countless whip shadows, and torn into pieces. With the death of the insect queen, the entire sea of insects lost a unified command and the support of follow-up forces. Death was inevitable. Gray was even more calm. His strength was shockingly strong, and the internal threat had been eliminated. Naturally, everything was under control. You all still have great use, Gray said indifferently. I have decided to transform and leave this place. However, under the restrictions of the immortal path, I cannot leave, unless I can steal the sky and change the sun. I need your blood essence. Not only can it strengthen my life essence, but it can also deceive this world and allow me to leave. So, allow me to thank you all once again. Gray bowed again, but although he was polite, it only made Ling Han and the others even angrier. Do you have that much strength? Dongfang Rui snorted. He was the son of a celestial venerable, and now someone actually wanted to extract his blood essence. This immortal grass must be a frog at the bottom of a well, and did not know how terrifying a celestial venerable was. Otherwise, he would be killed by the celestial venerable the moment he left the immortal path. Daring to touch a descendant of a celestial venerable, wasn't that courting death? Gray snorted and said, have you all not seen my strength? As soon as he finished speaking, tens of thousands of whip shadows instantly attacked. Each whip shadow was almost like a bug, and their numbers were similarly overwhelming, not at all weaker than the sea of bugs. Moreover, everyone had already experienced a bloody battle, so how much combat power could they still have left? Fortunately, Gray was only flexing his muscles, and did not actually launch an attack. Right now, he was like a nouveau riche who had just discovered a peerless treasure, and could not wait to share his happiness with others. Thus, even though Ling Han and the others were about to be killed by him very soon, he was still like a chatterbox. A few eras ago, I suddenly developed spiritual intelligence and I grew bit by bit, Gray told his story. Obtaining the Tao from plants is too difficult, too difficult. Even after so many years, my mind has only just matured. The essence of plants is favored by the heavens, but once it developed spiritual intelligence, it would be hated by the heavens and earth, causing parasites to grow in my body, making me restless. Fortunately, it has finally been resolved now. Gray revealed a sinister smile. All right, I have decided to kill all of you and leave this damned place. As for your repayment, I will do my best to act as quickly as possible so that you will all suffer less. Everyone trembled. They were going to have to fight another hard battle. However, Ling Han raised his right hand. I still have 2 vital energy of heaven and earth. They are the things that killed the insect queen just now. Do you want to try? Everyone was instantly overjoyed. It turned out that Ling Han still had a trick up his sleeve. Good. Wonderful. Don't kill me. Don't hurt me. Gray said in an extremely exaggerated manner, and even used his hands to hug his arms, shivering. However, he immediately broke into laughter. I'm really not suited for acting. He tied his hands behind his back. Just do your best. You won't be able to kill me at all. At most, you will only injure me a little. Today, only death awaits all of you. He said word by word. Chapter 2458. Gray was fearless and full of confidence. He had to obtain everyone's blood. Why did he only choose the Emperor's Star? Not only was their battle prowess powerful enough to resist the insect sea, but their blood was also useful to him. It could help him deceive the heavens and earth and leave this place. As such, he did not hesitate to be heavily injured by the origin energy of heaven and earth. He could slowly recover, but if he missed this opportunity, he would have to wait for so many Emperor Stars to gather again. When would that happen? Then let's fight, Huofarong said coldly. If they fought outside, their chances of winning would be even slimmer. The water vines only needed to destroy their boats and let the sea deal with them. If they fought here, they still had some hope. After all, this was the interior of Ash, and their battle strength would definitely be affected. Ling Han sighed and took out the plain scroll. Gray, don't force me. Hui looked at Ling Han, a trace of anger flickering in his eyes. Ling Han actually dared to call him Hui Hui? So what if I force you? Gray said in disdain. Ling Han broke into a grin, and with a thought, he activated Wally's model. Instantly, he began to extract the energy from the dimensional scroll. Wang, his body glowed, and a frightening power surged out, rapidly erasing the poison in his body. One was the most original void energy of the origin world, while the other was the poison of a parasite in a certain immortal herb on the immortal path. How much difference was there between the two? Infinitely many times, therefore, when this surge of energy passed through, the toxins in his body melted like snow meeting boiling water. Quang, a clap of thunder sounded, but it didn't appear above the cave, but somewhere even further away. Gray's face immediately turned pale with fright. Others couldn't see it, but he was very clear. Dark clouds rolled above his main body, and there were flashes of lightning interweaving. A terrifying heavenly tribulation was brewing. To what extent has this tribulation reached? He only had one feeling, and that was that as long as he was struck once, he would definitely be finished. But he hadn't broken through to the next realm, and he hadn't done anything that defied the heavens. Why would a heavenly tribulation target him? No, not at him, but at Ling Han. However, because Ling Han was in his body, the heavens and earth would think that he was protecting Ling Han. And what was the consequence of interfering with the heavenly tribulation? He was going to passively undergo the tribulation. Stop. Hui hurriedly shouted. If this heavenly tribulation really formed, then everyone here would die, including him. Of course, Ling Han couldn't really let the Empyrean tribulation form. He stopped drawing energy from the plain scroll and smiled faintly. Now, I think we need to talk. Gray was speechless. After a while, he said, What do you want? Ling Han smiled and said, First, you have to send us across the sea. And then? Asked Gray. The second is to let us go, of course. Hui immediately refused. At most, I'll let you go alone. He needed the blood of these Emperor Stars. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to change his body and leave the path of immortality. To him, this was a cage that would forever trap him here. Ling Han shook his head. No, you can only keep these two people here. He pointed at Dongfang Rui and Xian Rong. They were the descendants of 9-5 and heavenly venerable Feng Qing. He couldn't be bothered to care about their lives. Dongfang Rui and Xian Rong were furious. Fuck, you're too sinister. But they didn't act out. Instead, they decided to follow Ling Han and the others. This way they could escape together. No, at least 5. Hui shook his head. 5 was the minimum. If there were less than 5, he couldn't change himself. Ling Han shook his head. Besides Dongfang Rui and Xian Rong, the others weren't so bad that he could sacrifice them. He drew on the power of the plane scroll again, causing thunderclouds to roll and strengthen his persuasion. However, Hui was determined. I've lived long enough. I don't want to be trapped in this damn place anymore. So, if I can't leave this place, living is no different from being dead. Was it real or fake? Ling Han couldn't be sure. Logically, Hui had just gotten rid of the disaster in his body and should be yearning for a better life. But the grass elves had reached the Tao. Who knew if their brains were fried? He had been drawing on the power of the plane scroll. At the moment when the heavenly tribulation was about to arrive, he stopped. Hui didn't say anything. Instead, he used this method to express his determination. He was determined to leave this place. He must have guessed that Ling Han didn't want to die either. That was why he was so determined. However, he really had to pinch Ling Han's pulse. Ling Han thought about it and said, "You only need essence blood. You don't necessarily need people's lives. So, we can all give you some essence blood to help you achieve your goal." Hui was silent. After a while, he nodded. Okay. Ling Han looked at everyone. Seeing that they all nodded, he nodded too. We've settled the second condition. Now, let's talk about the third, which is also the last. Speak. Hui said. His expression was very difficult. He thought that he should be able to sweep everyone away. Now, he was forced to talk about conditions. This made him very depressed. One had to know that he played everyone in the palm of his hand. Naturally, he had an indescribable sense of superiority. Now, this sense of superiority was shattered. The contrast was too great. Ling Han said, I also need immortal fruits. He didn't say this because he had earned them with his own strength. There was no need to share them with others. How many? Hui asked after a moment of silence. These immortal fruits were nurtured by him in the first place, and were completely useless to him. However, he had already achieved Tao now. Giving away immortal fruits was equivalent to harming his own vitality. Naturally, he was very unwilling. Ling Han thought for a moment. 20. Hui almost cursed it out loud. Those are immortal fruits. Do you think they're cabbages? 20. Your sister. 1, he said coldly. Too little. Ling Han shook his head. At a point. 2. Hui pondered for a moment. Add more. Ling Han and Hui seemed to have become businessmen. One called out a high price, while the other sat on the ground and negotiated. After a long time, they finally reached a deal. 7 immortal fruits. 1 for her, 1 for her, 1 for her. Ling Han pointed at Hu Niu, the Rain Emperor, and the others. Of the 7 immortal fruits, he asked for 1, and the rest were given to Hu Niu, the Empress, Bewitching Maiden Ro, the Rain Emperor, Ji Wuming, and the Fire Hibiscus. He gave it to Ji Wuming because Ling Han hoped that the latter would be stronger and be able to keep up with his footsteps. As for the Fire Hibiscus, it was actually for the same reason. However, the Fire Hibiscus was extremely powerful in the first place, and her evolution index was shockingly high. Dongfang Rui and Xian Rong were both extremely envious, but could they still ask Ling Han for more? All right, bring us ashore. Hui said nothing, turned around, and left. His figure disappeared like bubbles. Though according to the agreement, he could still leave the celestial path, the process was bumpy and not as smooth as he had imagined. This made him very unhappy. 7 months later, Hui appeared again and said, We're ashore. They left. With Hui personally leading the way, the maze was naturally not a problem. They soon arrived at the previous cave entrance. After walking out, They saw the bright red sun hanging in the sky, which made their mood relaxed. Chapter 2460. This was a big shot. Greywood was expressionless and cold like ice. Ling Han smiled and said, "There are so many people, but you insist on following me." Grey glanced at him emotionlessly. "You're an interesting person. You're the first one who can threaten me. Also, I'm curious how you can use such great power. If you want to know, I'll tell you." Ling Han wasn't stingy and used Wally's model. He even gave a detailed formula. In any case, apart from him, no one could learn it at the moment. As expected, Grey was greatly troubled. At first, he was still thinking, but soon he collapsed and transformed into his original form of a big radish. Countless roots floated around. "Let's go." Ling Han pulled the three girls and slipped away. He didn't want to stay with such a terrifying guy like Grey. Although Grey hadn't become an immortal king, why would he want a flawless immortal seed? But with a special form and a special realm, this guy was really terrifying. It was better to stay away from him. The four continued to search for immortal seeds. Their final destination was naturally the center of the immortal path. They could leave there as long as they became immortal kings. After crossing the sea, the continent was very dangerous. There were layers of poisonous miasma, valleys densely covered with sword chi, and mountain peaks filled with saber intent. They couldn't go anywhere carelessly, or they would die. Those were probably second or even third firmament immortal kings. To pseudo-immortal kings like them, it was a dangerous land, a land of death. However, it wasn't impossible to pass through those dangerous lands. They needed time. Maybe there would be a few hours a month when it was safe and they could pass through it. Maybe it was one day after another, and the time was very short. Ling Han and the others naturally slowed down. Some dangerous lands would only change once every few years, so they needed to be extremely patient. Sometimes they even needed to stay a little longer. Otherwise, it would be too late for regrets if there was an unexpected change. This wasn't because they were too careful. It was because when they encountered such a situation, the environment would clearly change and they could pass through, but in a few breaths' time at most, it would become extremely terrifying again with terrifying killing intent. Although this kind of pseudo-safe situation did not happen too often, once it happened, they had to be careful, because no one could guarantee that the danger zone they were about to pass through was not under the pseudo-safe situation. Because of this, their speed of progress was insanely slow. After thousands of years, they were still very far from the center of the path of immortals. It was no wonder that the immortal path would last for 10,000 years after it opened. It would indeed take a very long time to reach the central region. Of course, Ling Han and the other three had completely grasped the immortal seed imprints that Hui had given them, allowing them to slightly grasp Hui's Dao. This was close to killing, but it was also close to death. It was extremely strange. Because of this, they spent hundreds of years to finally master the imprint of the immortal seed. However, none of them wanted to use it as their own immortal seed, even if it was of a higher level. If he were to make use of this to break through to the immortal king realm, he would become a killing machine, cold and emotionless. This could only be used as a reference. They also continuously collected the immortal seeds, comprehending them one by one and extracting their essence to increase their own understanding of the Tao. Ling Han had told the three women before that he had great ambitions. He wanted to take the advantages of tens of thousands of immortal seeds and form a unique immortal seed that belonged to him. He did not want the immortal seeds that already existed in the heaven and earth, because in his eyes, the immortal seeds that already existed would naturally be branded with someone else's symbol, even if this someone else was actually the heaven and earth. His own Tao should be unique. The Empress and Hunyo both decided to do the same as him, collecting as many immortal seeds as they could, learning from each other's strengths to make up for their weaknesses, and forming the most suitable immortal seed for themselves. And bewitching Maiden Ro did not have such great ambitions. Now that she had broken through to the Celestial King realm, she felt that she had no regrets. The more imprints of the immortal seeds, the deeper Ling Han's comprehension. It was as if the heaven and earth had also appeared in front of him in the form of this kind of imprint. He could casually grasp regulations, and was omnipotent. This kind of feeling was very wonderful, giving him an urge to break through to the Celestial King realm in a hurry. He hurriedly suppressed this urge. If he broke through now, it was still not perfect enough. The four of them continued to advance. Sometimes they might not necessarily walk in a straight line, but would instead deviate to other places. As long as there were immortal seeds, they would move. This was the reason why they had come to the celestial path. The number of immortal seeds in Ling Han's hands was increasing. Not only did he have a bunch of wives, parents, and even his friends had one. This was unimaginable before they had set out, but things had actually gone so smoothly. Time flew, and another 7,000 years had passed. There was only less than 2,000 years left from the 10,000-year deadline. Ling Han and the others made some adjustments, and did not make any more detours. Instead, they headed straight for the central area of the celestial path. They could not possibly block the time too tightly, or it was really possible that they would be trapped here forever. The celestial fruits that Ling Han had obtained numbered in the hundreds, and they all turned into imprints that appeared in his mind. He had a feeling that even if it was that so-called flawless celestial seed, so what? He had never thought of using that celestial seed to break through. At most, he would only use it as a reference. In fact, he felt that even if he broke through now, the celestial seed that he formed would not be weaker than that flawless one. Of course, if there was no necessary reason, he would not be in a hurry to break through either. The Empress and Bewitching Maiden Row were slightly weaker. They still needed time to accumulate. On this day, they arrived at a city to scout out the situation and find out how far they were from the center of the celestial path. This city was called Summoning Cloud City, and there was a celestial king overseeing it, so it was naturally called Cloud Celestial King. This city had been named after his title in the first place. Summon Cloud Celestial King was very powerful, and was a third heaven existence. On the celestial path, he could be called a supreme elite. However, it was said that this celestial king was currently not in the city. As for where exactly he had gone, no one knew, and no one dared to ask. In any case, no one dared to make trouble either. Otherwise, if a celestial king flew into a rage, wouldn't that be seeking death? Ling Han and the others entered the city to understand the current situation. Do you know where Lord Summon Cloud has gone? In the restaurant, there were people talking loudly at all times, giving pointers on the state of affairs. Sometimes, they would even reveal some true secrets. How could we possibly know? That's right, where Lord Summon Cloud has gone, could it be that he still has to tell us? The customer from before laughed loudly. Let me tell you, I have a relative who is the son of the third uncle of the gatekeeper, Qi Yuan, the youngest disciple of Summon Cloud Celestial King. He told me personally that Lord Summon Cloud has gone to battle with someone this time. What? Lord Summon Cloud is already so powerful, and there are still people who dare to make an enemy of him. Some people did not believe it. That's right, you must be trying to impress the crowd. This is completely unbelievable. The customer from before made a solemn vow, patting his chest, and declared, I can use my life to guarantee that every word that I have said is true. Then tell us, who is Lord Summon Cloud going to battle with? I don't know that. The customer from before shook his head. Everyone shook their heads. This could not even withstand questioning, and would immediately give the game away. It's true, the customer from before hurriedly said. Though I don't know who Lord Summon Cloud is going to battle with, it is said that Lord Qi Yuan has muttered something that involves a method to leave the celestial path. Chapter 2461. Ling Han's interest was piqued, and he pricked up his ears to listen. The others, however, were completely uninterested, and all scoffed. For ordinary people like them, this city was practically their entire world, and no matter how far they went, they could only travel a few hundred miles at most. Furthermore, they could not possibly become celestial kings either. Whether they stayed on the celestial road or stayed in the celestial realm, it made no difference to them. When the previous customers saw this, they couldn't help but wither. They had thought that they had grasped a great secret, and could brag about it for a few years. Meanwhile, Ling Han recalled that when he had just entered the celestial road, It was said that the celestial kings here would try their best to stay close to the central area in order to fight for the treasures within. Now that he thought about it again, this so-called treasure was actually a chance to leave the celestial road? Guidu had thought of a way to escape this place. There was no reason that a dignified celestial king would be willing to be trapped here forever. The celestial road was incredibly vast for ordinary people, but for celestial kings, it was a slightly larger cage. Ling Han frowned slightly. What he was concerned about was what if the opportunity that these celestial kings wanted to fight for just happened to clash with that flawless celestial seed. After exiting the restaurant, he asked around and found out that Summoning Cloud City was already very close to the center of the celestial road. Going by the speed of ascending origin tiers, it would only take about 300 years. If it were pseudo-celestial kings like them, the time would definitely be much shorter. However, the central area of the celestial road was not so easy to enter. There were powerful immortal beasts standing guard, and even celestial kings did not dare to easily set foot there, being very wary. Ling Han and the others left the city. When they had just arrived at the city gates, they saw someone pasted a notice on the wall. At first, Ling Han did not pay attention, but when his eyes swept over, he showed an expression of surprise. This was like a wanted notice, and a person's face was drawn on it. If it was really some heinous thief that was wanted, then so be it for Ling Han, but more importantly, he recognized this face. Yen Xianlu. Could it be that this guy had formed a feud with Summoning Cloud Celestial King? But Summoning Cloud Celestial King had already left this place, so who could capture Yen Xianlu? He was a monarch tier, and had reached the peak stage of the ascending origin tier. How could anyone not be a celestial king suppress him? Ling Han walked towards the notice and couldn't help but reveal an angry expression. It was said that Yen Xianlu had fallen into someone's hands, and they wanted Ling Han to go to a place to redeem him. They had given him a time limit of 100 years, and based on the time, 70 years had already passed. Ling Han apprehended the person who had posted the notices. He was merely a minor character who had just advanced into the heavenly body tier. He said that someone had given him a star stone, and told him to post such notices everywhere in the city. Where is that person? Ling Han asked. He knew that the other party was just a minor character and wouldn't know anything. At the auspicious Cloud Tavern. Sensing Ling Han's killing intent, that insignificant person was so frightened that his entire body trembled. Ling Han nodded. After asking for the location of Auspicious Cloud Inn, he charged over. The three women were also furious. They actually dared to capture Ling Han's friends to threaten him. Who was so audacious? However, since they were deliberately targeting Ling Han, then it should be impossible that they didn't know how strong Ling Han was. There had to be a terrifying trap waiting for Ling Han. They soon arrived at the Auspicious Cloud Tavern. Ling Han directly went to a guest room and began to knock on the door. Who is it? Very soon, someone opened the door, and a middle-aged man walked out. His gaze towards Ling Han was filled with confusion. Ling Han smiled faintly. Don't you recognize me? Or you? The middle-aged man asked, his eyes filled with wariness. This person's cultivation level was only at the severing mundane tier, pitifully weak. Ling Han frowned. This person was also an errand boy. He pushed open the door and entered. That person couldn't stop him at all, but when he saw the Empress and the other two women behind him, his gaze involuntarily froze, and he was instantly rendered speechless. Ling Han sat down very casually. Who told you to post the notices? The middle-aged man was startled and hurriedly said, My lord, this has nothing to do with me. It's just that a lord told me to do this. He is powerful, so I had no choice but to obey, this person said. Summoning Cloud City wasn't the first place he had come to, but rather the third. Just the journey alone had taken him over a dozen years' time, and if it wasn't for the fact that the person who had sent him to do this had provided him with a carriage, he would have spent even more time. Ling Han pondered. The mastermind had this person spread the news that Yen Xianlu had been captured everywhere, so he was probably not the only one who had been hired. That was why he had been able to put up notices in all the cities, increasing the possibility that Ling Han would find out. The person who sent you to do this, do you remember what he looks like? Ling Han asked. A part of my memory has been wiped out, so I'm completely unclear, the middle-aged man said, slightly fearful as if he was afraid that Ling Han would be dissatisfied and take his life. Ling Han smirked coldly. This mastermind was actually afraid that he would know his true identity? Who exactly was it? What do you plan to do? The Empress asked. Naturally to keep the appointment, Ling Han said. Firstly, Yan Xianlu was his underling, and had always been helping him do things. Though the situation had changed now, and it was practically impossible for their alliance to be of any use, this friendship was still there. Secondly, he too wanted to know who was targeting him. There are many who want to kill me, but there aren't many who have the ability to do so. Ling Han thought. There shouldn't be anyone in the ascending origin tier that can touch me, so the other must have broken through on the celestial road, and thus forced me to appear, taking advantage of the time when I haven't become a celestial king to kill me. However, there seems to be a considerable number of such ascending origin tiers, the Empress reminded. There were indeed a considerable number. There should be a considerable number of celestial kings that wanted to curry favor with the two great heavenly venerables, Feng Qing and Jiu Wu. Having their disciples attack Ling Han on the celestial road was not something very strange. Now that more than 8,000 years had passed, those who should have become celestial kings had naturally already broken through, so they had begun to set a trap for Ling Han. On the other hand, only those with great ambitions would delay breaking through. Their goal was naturally to obtain the final flawless celestial seed. This was related to whether they could become a heavenly venerable or not. It sounds like the other party is quite confident, Ling Han said. Putting up a notice so ostentatiously was practically announcing it to the whole world. If he was able to easily rescue them, then where would his dignity be? What do you plan to do? The Empress asked. Kill. Hu Niu called out from the side. Ling Han thought for a moment and then said, This time, I'll go alone. You guys wait for me outside. If I'm alone, I can advance or retreat as I please. However, you guys have to be careful. Don't let this be a trap, and the main target is you guys. The Empress and the others all nodded. Bewitching Maiden Rose said, If we really encounter danger, I will immediately break through. She was a monarch tier, and once she broke through to the celestial king tier, she would definitely be one of the best among new celestial kings. Only the Emperor's star could suppress her. All right, let's set off first, and split up when we reach a suitable place. They left Summoning Cloud City. Previously, they had already found out about the place where Yan Xianlu had been captured. Thus, they headed straight for their destination. The place was actually very far. They had all traveled for more than 2 months, and only then did they approach that place. The place where Ling Han was going to ransom the person was a gorge called the Trapped Tiger Gorge. Just from the name, one could tell that this place was definitely very dangerous. Reading on a cell phone was more refreshing. Chapter 2462. The Trapped Tiger Gorge was a long and narrow valley. The mountain walls on both sides were as high as 30,000 meters. They were tall, steep, and thin, like 2 blades. From afar, the mountain walls were entwined with black clouds, like a ghostly mountain. All right, you guys find a place to hide first, Ling Han said. The Empress and her 2 daughters left together. Meanwhile, Ling Han took a deep breath and strode towards the Trapped Tiger Gorge. He was very curious as to who was plotting behind the scenes. Was it Dongfang Ruishuan Rong Wudi, or some other nobody? He did not hide his tracks and just openly walked towards the gorge, but his spirit had already been adjusted to its peak condition, and he could explode with a powerful attack at any time. After a while, he arrived at the entrance of the gorge. From here, the whole gorge was like a monster that had opened a large, sinister mouth, wanting to swallow him whole. The terrain here was dangerous. There were mountain peaks on both sides, and the gorge was thin and long, no more than 9 meters wide. It was very suitable for an ambush. Ling Han stretched out his hand, clenched it into a fist, and threw a punch at the mountain peak. Pang! A muffled sound rang out on the mountain walls. Crushed rocks rustled down, but the mountain itself was not damaged in the slightest. So sturdy. Ling Han appeared slightly surprised. Though he did not use his full strength in this punch, the power was not weak either, but it actually did not damage the mountain in the slightest, which was enough to prove how sturdy the mountain was. No wonder they had to set a trap for him here. They clearly wanted him to enter but not leave. Blocking both ends, and added with the sky being sealed, it did not take a few people to catch him. Of course, the prerequisite was that everyone had to reach or even surpass Ling Han's strength. Otherwise, they would be caught in one fell swoop by Ling Han. However, has Yan Xianlu really been captured? Ling Han pondered. With Yan Xianlu's strength as a monarch tier, even if he did not obtain a complete celestial seed after so many years, he should have fused the incomplete fragments into a complete one. Then, when he encountered an attack, he would have a life-saving card to break through to Celestial King tier. Once he became a Celestial King, then even if there was a difference in strength, if a Celestial King wanted to leave, there was really no way to stop him, unless the difference in cultivation level was too great, such as a fourth heaven versus a first heaven. Therefore, it was easy to determine the victor between immortal kings, but it was difficult to kill an immortal king. The strongest Celestial King on the Celestial Path was merely a third heaven Celestial King, and this kind of Celestial King had no enmity with Ling Han, so how could he possibly make use of Yan Xianlu to scheme and harm him? Am I a little stupid? I knew the whole thing was a trap, but I still jumped into it. Ling Han thought to himself as he walked, a smile on his face. He was very unhappy that someone had targeted him from behind and shot him in the back. Therefore, this time, the other party would definitely appear. He wanted to know who exactly it was. If there's a chance, I'll get rid of this bug. I don't like being stared at from behind. He strode forward. Of course, he had his reasons for being so confident. The trapped Tiger Gorge was secluded and serene. No birds or beasts could be heard. This place was so quiet that it was like a ghost cave. After walking for a while, he found a wooden pillar erected in front of him. It was about 10 feet tall, and there was a rope hanging from the top of it. There was a person hanging from it. This person's hair was disheveled. At most, it could be seen that he was a man. As for his appearance, it was impossible to tell at all. Yan Xianlu. Ling Han called out loudly, "Brother Yan, Brother Yan." That person's limbs drooped, and his head drooped all the way to his chest. There was not the slightest bit of movement. It was unknown whether he had fainted from severe injuries, or had already died. Ling Han walked under the wooden pillar, raised his head and said, "Brother Yan, I've come to save you." Xiao, he suddenly waved his hand, and a cold light shot out, shooting swiftly towards Yan Xianlu. This was the divine demon sword, and the target that the tip of the sword was aimed at was not the rope on that person's head, but straight towards his mind. This strike was astonishingly fast. Ling Han had used the regulations of space, and added with the special ability of the divine demon sword itself, it directly sliced through space and directly reached that person's head. It was in this instant that the dying person immediately came back to life, exuding an astonishing aura. Celestial King tier level, and could forcibly shake down even stars. However, Ling Han's battle prowess could rival that of a Celestial King, and added with the fact that his body technique would explode even faster in the first place, the divine demon sword was also stronger than ordinary celestial tools, and had nurtured a special ability. On the other hand, that Celestial King had previously completely restrained his aura, and pretended to be a dying person. Though he had shown his might now, there was a process of eruption. There was still time. The divine demon sword directly pierced through that Celestial King's head, and only stopped when the hilt of the sword hit the top of his skull. Suddenly, heaven and earth grieved, and a rain of blood filled the sky, lamenting the death of a Celestial King. To be honest, this Celestial King had really died too unjustly. He had not even used a single move, and had not even revealed his face, yet he had been insta-killed. This was practically a great humiliation. Ling Han stretched out a hand. Xiao, the divine demon sword suddenly flew back, and once again landed in his hand. I just said that this little thief was incredibly cunning. Right? We did not manage to plot against him, and instead weakened our strength, someone said with a cold smirk. Though he seemed to be reflecting on himself, he was not sad at all. The death of that Celestial King was like a stranger. Ling Han raised an eyebrow. "You Wudi." "That's right, it's me." Yu Wudi clasped his hands behind his back and slowly descended from above the canyon. He had now completely consolidated his celestial king tier, and the extraordinary splendor on his body was incredibly dazzling, exuding the unique might of a celestial king, causing one to hold their breath and tremble. Ling Han nodded. I just thought that, who would be so shameless as to set up such a trap? You must be one of them. Yu Wudi was not angry in the slightest. He had already experienced the sharpness of Ling Han's tongue, and naturally knew that he could not argue with Ling Han, or he would definitely be at a disadvantage. He smiled faintly. These are your last words? Ling Han stared at him. Not bad, your strength has improved, but unfortunately, you are still very weak. Yu Wudi's hands involuntarily trembled, and his eyes shot out a cold light. If it wasn't for Ling Han, would he need to break through so early? If it wasn't for Ling Han's interference, he could at least rush to the middle stage of the first Celestial King, and then his battle prowess could reach the middle stage of the second Celestial King. But now, though he could be considered to have consolidated his Celestial King tier, his battle prowess had only reached the peak of the first Celestial King, which did not match his Imperial Star aptitude at all. Ling Han had touched his sore spot, and he was naturally furious. Your good luck ends here. Next, I will make you pay a terrible price, and you will regret being born in this world, Yu Wudi said coldly. You really do sound better than singing. Ling Han waved his hand. Use whatever moves you have, you can't kill me. He was equivalent to a Celestial King, and if a Celestial King wanted to kill a Celestial King, how could it be done without the advantage of being at the third Celestial King tier? Ling Han was not stupid. He knew that he could not win, but he still refused to retreat. I already said, there is no need to go through so much trouble. As soon as this brat enters the canyon, we will immediately attack. Another voice rang out, and a second Celestial King appeared. His body was wrapped in a strange light, and his aura was astonishing. Ling Han walked over and couldn't help but smile. So it is you. What, you ran away before, why do you dare to come back now? Previously, Celestial King Zhongbei joined forces with 6 Celestial Kings to attack Ling Han, but Ling Han killed Celestial King Zhongbei and scared away the 6 Celestial Kings. And this Celestial King was one of the Celestial Kings who were scared away. Chapter 2464. Being reprimanded by Yu Wudi like this, the 5 Immortal Kings couldn't help but feel bitter. All of you have celestial weapons, so you can naturally offset the baleful aura emitted by the celestial weapons. But what about them? If they had celestial weapons back then, how could they have been forced away by Ling Han? At first, they thought that as long as Yu Wudi displayed his might and neutralized the celestial weapon in Ling Han's hand, they would be able to take the opportunity to attack and take Ling Han's life. However, they had never imagined that the shockwaves caused by the collision of 2 celestial weapons would be so terrifying that they, the Celestial Kings, were not even qualified to approach. They retreated one after another and then attacked again. Hong hong hong. Giant hands appeared one after another, slapping towards Ling Han. Yu Wudi was furious. What's the use of fighting from so far away? You should know that Ling Han's physique is extremely strong. You have to hit him continuously in close combat to hurt him. Are you going to tickle him from so far away? Ling Han burst into laughter and charged forward. He ignored the attacks of the 5 Celestial Kings and launched a fierce attack on Yu Wudi. His physique was infinitely close to the Immortal King realm, and it was equivalent to an initial stage Immortal King going all out in defense. Moreover, it would always be like this. The long-range attacks of 5 Immortal Kings were nothing more than tickles to him. He could completely disregard them. Bang bang bang. Although he was knocked down, he came out unscathed and slashed at Yu Wudi with his sword. In comparison, even though the battle prowess of the insects in the insect cave was much weaker, firstly, there were too many of them, and secondly, the insect poison could reduce his offensive and defensive power. The threat they posed was actually far greater than the combined forces of these 6 great Celestial Kings. Yu Wudi humphed. But now that things had come to this, he was in no mood or time to argue with the 5 Celestial Kings. He had strong confidence that he had already stabilized his Celestial King realm. Could it be that he still couldn't suppress Ling Han? Yu Wuti brandished his purple gold divine rod and confronted Ling Han head-on. His realm was higher, so why would he be afraid of Ling Han? Boom boom boom, the two of them exchanged blows with brute force, and the collision of their celestial weapons produced a deafening boom that shook the heaven and earth. Murderous aura surged out from the celestial weapons, and it had even taken on physical form. The divine demon sword was black, while the purple gold celestial staff was purple. It was as if two oceans were facing off against each other. An ancient mystical beast surged out from the baleful aura, pouncing towards the other party. This wasn't a physical attack, but a spiritual attack that could shake a martial artist's divine soul. However, both of them were Emperor Stars and wielded celestial weapons, so they were naturally unafraid of this kind of baleful aura. However, it was different for the 5 great celestial kings. Their hearts were all shaken, and they had no choice but to retreat even further. A bunch of trash. Yu Wuti couldn't help but scold. Although the 5 celestial kings could also disturb Ling Han, they could only disturb him for a while. The effect was limited. He could only rely on himself. He brandished his immortal rod and forcefully suppressed it. The reason why he had invited the 6 great celestial kings to attack together was not that he thought he couldn't suppress Ling Han, but rather that he wanted these 6 people to help stop Ling Han from escaping. Thus, he had used Yan Xianlu as bait and lured Ling Han into this steep valley. They had really wanted to capture Yan Xianlu, but he had directly broken through to the celestial king tier at the critical juncture, and then forcefully killed his way out of the encirclement and escaped. The plan was halfway to success, but when they really battled with Ling Han, things didn't progress as smoothly as they had imagined. All of you, stand guard for me, don't let this brat escape. Yu Wuti called out loudly. Now, these 5 celestial kings could only be used like this. The 5 great celestial kings all wore ugly expressions, but they couldn't refute him, who asked them to indeed be unable to withstand the baleful aura of a celestial weapon. Yu Wuti attacked with his full power. His eyes were cold, and it was as if regulations were a part of his body. Every move he made was incredibly frightening, and when he brandished his celestial weapon, he was practically a god of war. Ling Han wielded his sword with his right hand and clashed head-on with his opponent without the slightest bit of fear. Indeed, he was much inferior in terms of power, but so what if his physique was tough? Meanwhile, his left hand brandished regulations. Flashes of lightning surged, turning into a sea of lightning. Space was sealed, and the flow of time was frozen and slowed. The regulations of slaughter were added to the divine demon sword, and he was similarly playing with regulations. It should be known that there were an astonishing number of celestial seed seals in his body, numbering in the hundreds. If each celestial seed seal matured, it would correspond to a great Tao of regulations. And there was a limit to great Tao. Thus, there were actually many repetitions of the hundreds of celestial seeds, but there were differences in the details. After all, there were 9 levels of celestial king tier, and celestial seeds also had to evolve 9 times before they could reach the pinnacle. Grasping so many celestial seed seals also caused Ling Han's use of regulations to practically reach the limit. Just as Ling Han had previously planned, he wanted to extract the essence of innumerable celestial seed seals and nurture a perfect celestial seed that belonged to him. And only this kind of celestial seed could truly be called perfect. In the fierce battle, Ling Han's comprehension of Great Tao became even deeper, causing him to feel a kind of uncontrollable urge to break through to the next level. This was also reflected in his body, which constantly emitted celestial light, and the aura of a celestial king was boiling. And you still want to break through to the celestial king tier to help? Yu Wuti sneered. Even if you go through the heavenly tribulation, I will still kill you. He thought that Ling Han felt that he couldn't hold on, so he went through the heavenly tribulation to get out of the situation. He had already made up his mind. Even if Ling Han went through the heavenly tribulation, he would forcibly kill him. After all, if he didn't go through the heavenly tribulation, he couldn't truly reach the celestial king tier. Ling Han smiled faintly. If the other party insisted on having such wishful thinking, then he would just let him think that way. Yu Wuti's attacks were even more ferocious. He wanted to distract Ling Han, and once he was distracted during a breakthrough, the consequences would be very terrifying. Not being able to break through was a small matter, but it was very likely that his own foundation would be damaged. The other 5 celestial kings also increased their attacks. Like Yu Wudi, they thought that Ling Han couldn't hold on much longer. Ling Han, however, was extremely calm. A thought flashed through his mind. Perhaps it was time to form his own celestial seed. He didn't necessarily have to form the celestial seed immediately, but he could try to extract the essence of the celestial seed brands in his body and begin to walk his own path. In the future, when he obtained more and stronger celestial seeds, he could continue to extract the essence from them to improve the level of his unique celestial seed. When he thought of this, his heart was like fire. An earth-shattering change began to appear inside his body. Clang, clang, clang. In his consciousness, all the celestial seed brands were falling apart, like ice meeting fire, and were rapidly melting. But in the center of these celestial seed brands, a new brand was quietly forming. Although it was just a simple stroke, the aura it emitted seemed to be able to shake the heavens. Boom! Dark clouds suddenly rolled in the sky, and lightning flashed. It was the formation of a heavenly tribulation. This was too shocking. Ling Han clearly hadn't formed the celestial seed yet, and this was only the embryonic form of the celestial seed brand. But as soon as it appeared, heaven and earth were moved, and lightning was about to come down to erase him. This showed how powerful this celestial seed brand was. There was no such thing as an absolutely perfect and flawless celestial seed in the world. The one that suited oneself was the best. Ling Han's heart beat with understanding. The other celestial seed brands were like buildings eroded by time, disintegrating and collapsing, and the embryonic form of the celestial seed in the center was quietly forming. Chapter 2465. A Beautiful Romance. When they had started the path of cultivation, everyone had said that a natural complete celestial seed was far superior to a celestial seed formed from broken pieces. But this wasn't the absolute truth. Ling Han had already obtained enough complete celestial seeds and extracted their essence to form a new celestial seed. According to the previous theory, this was a kind of weakening, but it was actually pieced together from broken pieces. But for Ling Han, he only extracted the most essential parts, and with his own comprehension, this formed celestial seed was the strongest. Now, the celestial seed hadn't even formed, but the heavenly tribulation had already come. This was enough to prove how shocking the future celestial seed Ling Han would form would be. Even the heavens were jealous. Quang, a bolt of lightning immediately struck down, extremely terrifying. We can't let him pass the heavenly tribulation, or our plan will all fail. Yu Wudi shouted. He didn't care at all, waving his purple gold staff and rushing into the heavenly tribulation, wanting to stop Ling Han from breaking through. Although the 5 celestial kings really didn't want to pass the heavenly tribulation, they thought about the secret Ling Han was hiding. It could allow a pseudo-celestial king to fight against a true celestial king. How shocking was that? Their greed got in the way, and they all gritted their teeth and continued to attack. Quang, heaven and earth were not benevolent, and were fair to everyone. If you wanted to interfere with someone else's tribulation, then you had to bear the corresponding punishment. 6 black clouds formed almost at the same time, and then the terrifying heavenly tribulation immediately descended. The 6 celestial kings were immediately in a terrible predicament. Interfering with someone else's heavenly tribulation would definitely be targeted by heaven and earth, and they would be dragged in as well. But the heavenly tribulation they faced was definitely based on their own cultivation. For example, Ling Han was only a pseudo-celestial king, but the other 6 were true celestial kings, so their heavenly tribulations would naturally be more powerful. Although the 6 celestial kings were still attacking Ling Han, the power was already much weaker. They all put most of their energy into defending against their own heavenly tribulations. Luckily, they weren't disappointed. Ling Han's heavenly tribulation was incomparably terrifying, and he was continuously struck by lightning. It was a tragic sight. Hurry up! We're about to kill him. The 6 immortal kings cheered themselves on. What they did not know was that Ling Han was in such a sorry state not because he was no match for the heavenly tribulation, but because he had put more effort into condensing the immortal seed brand. The heaven and earth had sent down the punishment, not to strike him to death, but to disrupt him from condensing this immortal seed, which was perfect for him. Ling Han, of course, would not let the heaven and earth have their way. Therefore, he would rather be battered and injured than concentrate on forming the seed of immortality. If someone could look into his sea of consciousness, they would see that all of the immortal seed imprints had already collapsed. However, these fragments danced about, specks of things floating up, floating towards the center. Here, a new immortal seed imprint was forming, but the main frame did not belong to any of the previous complete immortal seeds. Ling Han had built it with his own comprehension. This was too immature. How could a person's comprehension compare to the heaven and earth? However, Ling Han had constantly come into contact with hollow energy. This was the intrinsic power of the origin world, and he had once been the ruler of the world. Although he was only at the quasi-celestial venerable level, he still far surpassed celestial kings. Now, he was using these two experiences as a guide to build the main frame of his immortal seed imprint. How could this not be shocking? Even Ji Wuming could not compare to him. After all, he had only been a ninth heaven celestial king in his previous life. No matter how strong he was, he could not cross this line. He had his own limitations. Clang, 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 the heavenly tribulations were merciless. Each one was stronger than the one before. At first, they only wanted to disrupt Ling Han, but then they became even fiercer. If they could not disrupt him, then they directly wiped out Ling Han. The power was terrifying. They crossed the threshold of a heaven, and Ling Han was badly battered. His clothes had long since been torn, and his flesh was torn. He could even smell the fragrance of roasted meat. However, a smile tugged at the corners of Ling Han's lips. He knew that this was a trap, but he still rushed in. Apart from wanting to kill the mastermind, there was another very important reason. He wanted to use the pressure of these people to help him take the most important step. He was the kind of person who was more motivated when he was under more pressure. The ambush of 6 celestial kings made him feel a sense of danger. He was also very unhappy. He wanted to obtain more power and wipe out these people. In his sea of consciousness, the immortal seed imprint became more and more complete. A terrifying aura surged out of his body. This was celestial king level. But he clearly had not become a celestial king, but he actually had the posture of a celestial king. This was too shocking. No wonder the heaven and earth were so angry and wanted to wipe him out. This was because he was an anomaly and had the power to break away from the control of the heaven and earth. Not good, he's going to break through. Yu Wudi was shocked. He swung his staff even more frantically, almost ignoring his own defense. The other 5 celestial kings were also almost fighting with their lives. If they couldn't stop Ling Han, then once he broke through to the celestial king level, it would be almost impossible for them to stop Ling Han from escaping. The 6 celestial kings seemed to have gone crazy, exploding their own battle prowess, crazily pouring it towards Ling Han. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll and let the 6 celestial kings and the heavenly tribulation bombard him. He had already reached a critical point and couldn't be disturbed in any way. He needed to be completely focused. The immortal seed imprint was about to be formed, but it was still missing a node. If this node was formed, then the imprint would be completely formed, and it couldn't possibly be shaken. But if it failed, this almost complete imprint would instantly collapse. Originally, this process could take 10,000 years, 1 million years, or even longer, but under such pressure, Ling Han wanted to complete it in a short day or 2, or even less. Hong long long, half a day passed, and the 6 celestial kings' heavenly tribulations had already begun to dissipate, but the dark clouds above Ling Han's head were still dense, condensed, and there was still lightning madly striking down. This scene shocked Yu Wudi and the others, and they couldn't help but stop their attacks. Didn't the heavenly tribulations only last for half a day? The heavens would do everything possible to prevent the emergence of elites, because the stronger a living being was, the more likely it was to affect the balance of heaven and earth. Thus, whenever a living being became stronger, there would be a heavenly tribulation to prevent it from breaking through. But the heavens would also leave a chance. and the heavenly tribulation would only last for half a day. If it was past, then it would be recognized by heaven and earth. But in Ling Han's case, why did the heavenly tribulation seem like it was giving birth to a child? Half a day had passed, and why was it still striking down incessantly? Had Ling Han offended the heavens? Even if the heavens couldn't pass, the heavenly tribulation would come twice as fast. Yu Wudi and the others looked at each other, and for a moment, they didn't know whether they should continue attacking. All of this was too strange. If they angered the heavens and made them pass the heavenly tribulation every day, what would they do then? If we attack again, will we still be attacked by the heavenly tribulation? Asked one of the celestial kings. Logically speaking, this question was very stupid. If you were already involved in the heavenly tribulation and it also lasted for half a day, then it would definitely end later than the one who was disturbed, so how could you continue to be involved? But Ling Han's situation was unprecedented. The one who was disturbed had already passed the heavenly tribulation, but he was still going through it. Then who would have the experience? If they attacked now, would they be involved in the heavenly tribulation again? Damn it. Chapter 2466. No matter who heard this, it was guaranteed that no one would believe it, even if the person who said this was an immortal king, or even if 6 immortal kings swore at the same time. Fuck, is there such a ridiculous thing? Even if you're an immortal king, you can't treat us like fools. Yu Wudi was filled with jealousy. He didn't know why Ling Han's tribulation was taking so long, but heavenly tribulations were the jealousy of heaven and earth. They were so jealous that they didn't hesitate to violate the laws of heaven and earth. It was obvious how outstanding and extraordinary Ling Han was, which was why heaven and earth didn't want him to break through. He had to stop it. Kill! He brandished the purple gold immortal rod and charged towards Ling Han again. The immortal rod displayed its might and blasted out an expanse of purple radiance. Ling Han brandished the divine demon sword to parry the attack. This was only a reflex action. The might of the divine staff was too great, and even his physique didn't dare to take it head-on. He had to block it. Bam! As the sword and rod collided, Ling Han was immediately sent flying. He fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. The other 5 immortal kings were surprised to find that the heavenly tribulation no longer targeted Yu Wudi. This was definitely a record breaker. The person who attacked the tribulation was actually not sucked into the tribulation, although they had already passed the tribulation. Kill! The 5 immortal kings roared as well, blasting towards Ling Han. If they didn't act now, when would they? This time, the pressure on Ling Han was even greater. Previously, although the 6 celestial kings had joined forces to attack, they had to focus most of their energy on resisting the heavenly tribulation. But now, it was different. They could focus all their energy on attacking. After all, they were all celestial kings, and all 5 of them were at the peak of the first heaven. Although Yu Wudi's cultivation was not high, he was an imperial star. His battle prowess was not inferior to theirs, and he also had a powerful weapon like the violet gold divine rod. Ling Han was covered in wounds. Not only did he have to face the heavenly tribulation, he also had to be besieged by 6 great immortal kings. More importantly, he had to focus most of his energy on condensing the immortal seed brand. This is an impossible task. However, Ling Han's fighting spirit was at its peak. He loved challenges and needed to create miracles in the impossible. Clap, clap, clap. Even though his godly bones were tough, they were still broken under such a terrifying attack. His skin and flesh had naturally split open a long time ago. Blood covered his entire body and splattered all over the ground. Right now, he was in an extremely bad state. Broken bones were sticking out one after another, some even reaching the bone marrow. It was guaranteed that his family and friends would not be able to recognize him. However, Ling Han did not feel the slightest bit of despair. On the contrary, his fighting spirit soared, his fighting spirit singing loudly. He looked forward to the formation of the immortal seed imprint. At that time, it would be time for his powerful counterattack. He unleashed the grand cosmic everlasting body and accelerated the flow of time on himself. A moment was several days, dozens of days. Faster! 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 Hong, his body trembled, and he entered a mysterious realm. Everything came to a standstill. He could clearly feel the malevolent expressions of the 6 celestial kings changing slightly. It was as though he had jumped out of this world, becoming an outsider. He arrived at the long river of time, winding about before him, leading to the future, connecting to the past. However, there was a mysterious power blocking the way. He could not cross the river, nor could he walk along the riverbank to trace history and explore the future. He could only stay in this state, in this space. Time stood still. Linghan, heavens! This was the movement of his divine sense. He saw lightning striking down, but the speed was so slow that it was hair-raising. In a breath's time, it could only fall less than an inch. Understanding rose in his heart. Previously, he had added a heavy stroke to the immortal seed imprint. It was his comprehension of the rules of time, and he also unleashed the grand cosmic everlasting body. He seemed to have touched upon some kind of mysterious realm. It was not that time had stopped, but that the operation of his spirit had surpassed time itself. Thus, he could not move his body, but his spirit seemed to have transcended. He had an urge to let his spirit leave his body. In this way, his spirit could roam freely between heaven and earth, not restricted by any rules, not bound by any powerful existence. However, he immediately suppressed this urge. The spirit depended on the body, and if it lost the body, the spirit would quickly wither. His mind tightened, and he focused on the immortal seed imprint. At this time, he could truly focus on the construction of the immortal seed imprint. Stroke after stroke, every time he comprehended something, the imprint would be more complete. In his mind, it was like a glazed pagoda, shining in all directions. 1 year, 10 years, 100 years passed quickly. When more than 700 years had passed, that bolt of lightning finally struck down. It was slashed by Linghan's divine demon sword and the attacks of the 6 great celestial kings. He estimated that it would probably take another 6 years for the first attack to hit. He continued to do his own thing, as if an instant was an eternity. After who knew how many years, Linghan suddenly felt his body relax. A strange power surged over, and the rules of heaven and earth completely materialized in front of him. It was as if he could casually pluck a rule and turn it into his own weapon. Celestial King Tier. Only celestial kings could casually grasp the rules, but he clearly had not advanced to Celestial King Tier, so why did he truly possess the ability of a celestial king? In a daze, he fell out of this state. Instantly, the flow of time returned to normal. Hong, the attacks of the 6 great celestial kings blasted over. Pung, smoke and dust filled the air, forming a mushroom cloud that soared into the sky. He's dead. A terrifying power surged, and the 6 great celestial kings stopped their attacks. Right now, the shock waves were too powerful, and they did not dare to rashly charge in. This brat suddenly became stupid for a moment. Otherwise, our final attack might not have succeeded. The 6 celestial kings all said. Just then, Linghan had suddenly become stupid, and in the end, he had been hit by their attacks. This was very strange. Could it be a trap? A celestial king said, "You are thinking too much." What kind of trap would cause you to be hit by the 6 great celestial kings? Yu Wudi also humphed coldly. He was very clear that he had hit head-on with his purple gold divine staff. What kind of destructive power did a celestial weapon have? If hit head-on, even a celestial king would die, what more a pseudo-celestial king who was still undergoing tribulation? He was dead for sure. He must be dead. Don't you see that the heavenly tribulation has already stopped? This caused the 6 great celestial kings to nod in agreement. Linghan could deceive them, but it was absolutely impossible for him to deceive the heaven and earth. Now that the heavenly tribulation had suddenly stopped, it could only mean one thing. Linghan was dead. They were all waiting. As long as the shock waves of power weakened slightly, they would rush in and search Linghan's spirit. In such a short amount of time, with the power of celestial kings, they would definitely be able to easily gather the scattered spirit. Boom! Right at this moment, a flame suddenly soared into the sky, burning fiercely. Even from far away, they could feel the intense burning sensation. This is the 6 great celestial kings muttered to themselves at the same time, and then they all revealed expressions of shock. The immortal Phoenix clan's rebirth from the ashes. A terrifying aura surged, and they saw a figure also walk out from the flames. He was slender and not tall, but the aura he emitted was peerlessly domineering, as if he was a celestial emperor. Ling Han. Chapter 2468. He could fight against 4 celestial kings alone, yet he still had the leisure to forge a celestial artifact? No one would believe this. What kind of immortal king was that? Wasn't he too weak? However, this was the reality of the situation. After only a dozen or so exchanges, a celestial king's head was pierced by a sword, and his mind was destroyed. His blood essence was absorbed by the divine demon sword, and he became a corpse. Ling Han's might was unstoppable. The remaining 3 great celestial kings were all astonished. There were strong and weak celestial kings. This was true, but if a celestial king wanted to escape, it shouldn't be a problem at all, unless there was a 3rd heaven or so suppressive realm. However, in front of Ling Han, they did not even have the chance to escape. If they had known that this would happen, they would not have had any ideas about Ling Han. But it was too late for regrets. Even if they begged for mercy, would Ling Han let them go? They could only fight with all their might. Celestial kings naturally had their own dignity. The 3 celestial kings all unleashed their strongest techniques, and for a moment, they managed to turn the situation around. Those that could become celestial kings were naturally prodigies among prodigies. Only one celestial king might appear in 10,000 ascending origin tiers, and it was clear how difficult it was to become a celestial king. Moreover, once one became a celestial king, his battle prowess would also be unparalleled. The 3 great immortal kings fought with all their might. Their roars were like thunder. Even if they died, they wanted to drag Ling Han down with them. This was the dignity of immortal kings. Unfortunately, their bravery was just a flash in the pan. The difference in strength was too great. How could it be realized? Ling Han attacked powerfully. In just a few hundred moves, the 3 great celestial kings were beheaded one by one. He bathed in the blood of an immortal king. He closed his eyes and suppressed the killing intent in his heart. He felt a little regretful that Yu Wuti escaped, but it didn't matter. Unless Yu Wuti was willing to stay on the celestial path for the rest of his life, he wouldn't be able to escape death even if he hugged his father all day long. He quickly let go of this small regret and focused on the immortal seed in his sea of consciousness. Even though he had yet to advance into the immortal king stage, he already possessed battle prowess above the peak of the 1st heaven. The quality of this immortal seed was already indescribable. Ling Han took a deep breath, opened his eyes again, and walked out of the canyon. When he exited the gorge, he released 7 short and 3 long whistles. Not long after, the Empress and the others flew over from the distance. "How is the situation?" the Empress asked. She did not care whether Ling Han had saved Yan Xianlu or not. As long as Ling Han himself was fine, that would be enough. Ling Han nodded. It was a trap. 6 celestial kings were killed, but Yu Wuti escaped. You seem to be a bit different," Hunyo said curiously, using her nose to continuously sniff Ling Han. Ling Han laughed heartily. "I've formed my own immortal seed brand. Even though it's not perfect, my battle prowess has increased countless times." The Empress and the others all looked tempted. Although they hadn't seen Ling Han show his might, 6 celestial kings had already been killed by Ling Han. Wasn't this awesome enough? Nyo is also going to break through. Hunyo shouted loudly. She was extremely envious. Ling Han nodded. "You can form an immortal seed brand first. It'll be fine as long as you don't let the immortal seed germinate. You can still replenish the immortal seed at any time to become more perfect. Then we'll stay here for a while." They didn't return to Summon Cloud City either. They just found a place nearby to stay. The 4 of them wandered on the main road. Ling Han was perfecting his immortal seed brand. He would gain enlightenment every day. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't leave through the teleportation formation at the center of the celestial path before becoming a celestial king, he didn't want to break through in a short time. The celestial path only condensed immortal seeds. A great many celestial kings actually only formed immortal seed brand on the celestial path, and after leaving the celestial path, they spent tens of millions of years, or even hundreds of millions of years to break through. But now, Ling Han didn't have the time to retreat from the way he had come. He could only use the teleportation formation at the center of the celestial path, and that required him to become a celestial king. They all had the grand cosmic infinite physique, which was of great help to their cultivation. Only 11 years had passed, and bewitching Maiden Ro was the first to break through, becoming the first celestial king among them. Her life index instantly soared to around 5,600 points, and she became the second elite among them. A few years later, Little Terror also broke through and became a celestial king tier-level great beast. However, though the little guy had broken through, it was still a narrow escape. The tribulation of heaven and earth surpassed the level of ordinary celestial king tier level, and was even close to reaching the second heaven. The tribulation almost shattered the little guy's soul. Even if Wally had improved Little Terror's genes, he was still targeted by the heaven and earth of the celestial realm when he broke through. However, it was also because he had been improved that he managed to survive in the end. Another 20 years passed, and the Empress and Hu Niu had both formed their own immortal seeds. Their battle prowess instantly soared by a great deal, and was around 5,500 points each. In this way, their team really had celestial king tier level battle prowess, and they could crush almost any first heaven. Let's go! They headed towards the central area of the celestial path. There was a supreme great opportunity hidden here, and there was a flawless immortal seed. In fact, there was even a way for the natives to leave the celestial path. To the celestial kings of this place, this was an endless temptation. However, it was said that this area was filled with danger. In the past, very few people had left the celestial path from this place. Most people didn't even cross the sea, and when it was about time, they would return the way they had come. As Ling Han and the others hurried on, they stabilized their cultivation level and perfected their immortal seed seals. After more than 70 years, they arrived at the central area of the celestial path, which was also the last area. This place was called the Holy City. It was really a city. It was incredibly large, but it had long since turned into ruins. In the center of the city, there was a transfer gate that could be used to leave the celestial path. In the past, passing through the city was no problem. Although there were celestial king tier level wild beasts in the ruins, those who needed to use the transfer gate were also celestial kings. Even if they couldn't defeat the beasts, it wasn't difficult to leave by using the transfer gate. However, the situation was different this time. Many complete buildings suddenly appeared in the ruins, and the area had expanded by more than 10 times. These new buildings were complete and had terrifying restrictions that even third firmament celestial kings would be wary of. There were even some plants that were extremely magical and had unfathomable might. It was said that the celestial kings yearned for the method to leave the celestial path. Hence, this place had also become the battlefield of the celestial kings. Everyone was occupying territory and advancing step by step. It was said that every step was fought for with blood. At this point, it was already impossible to turn back. Therefore, outsiders could only become celestial kings here and fight their way to the center of the ruins before using the transfer gate to leave. Ling Han and the others stopped and sized up the city in front of them. For several epochs, this place had been in ruins. But now, tall buildings rose from the ground. They were beautiful and magnificent, and they were enveloped by a mysterious luster that exuded a noble aura. "The four of you, may I have a word with you?" A person walked out of the city with a smile. The city had no walls, and a large number of the nearby buildings had been destroyed. The person was actually sitting on a short wall and only jumped down when Ling Han and the others arrived. It was a middle-aged man. He was amiable and had a wide smile on his face. "What's the matter?" asked Ling Han. Chapter 2469. I am Zhao Shuilong. Greetings to the four of you. This person walked over and bowed. One shouldn't hit a smiling person. Besides, he didn't have any grudges with them. Ling Han smiled. What's the matter? The four of you must want to borrow the teleportation formation here to return to the celestial realm, right? Zhao Shuilong smiled slightly. His gaze was mainly focused on Bewitching Maiden Ro, because he discovered that only Bewitching Maiden Ro's body was entwined with extraordinary splendor, and the other three were only pseudo-celestial kings, so they were naturally the leaders of this group. He paused for a moment, then said, "Now, there are huge changes in this wasteland. Look at those intact towers. They are all covered with restrictive spells, and they are so powerful that even celestial kings would frown." He then changed the topic and pointed to a purple vine in the distance. "And this plant that suddenly appeared is also extremely terrifying. A celestial king was entangled by it and was forced to break his own limbs to escape. Moreover, a great fortuitous encounter has appeared here, and it has caused everyone to become restless. If anyone were to charge in alone, then that person would only be crushed to death by the various powers." Zhao Shuilong revealed a smile. "So, my advice to the four of you is to cooperate with my master and charge into the center of the ruins together. We will each take what we need." So he was a lobbyist. Ling Han laughed loudly. "Why do I feel that the four of us have a strong army and strong horses? We can completely deal with whatever comes our way." Zhao Shuilong's face darkened. He didn't expect Ling Han's skin to be so thick. He coughed and said, "Sir, I have already said very clearly just now. Just the towers and plants that suddenly appeared here are already very difficult to deal with, not to mention that there are countless celestial kings fighting over them. You should know that the ones presiding over the overall situation here are all third heaven celestial kings." He even deliberately paused for a moment, meaning to say, "Did you hear that? Third heaven celestial kings are such powerful and domineering existences. What right do you, a pseudo-celestial king, have to compete with them?" Ling Han also wanted to tease him. "It's okay, we're just passing through. I believe no celestial king will make things difficult for us." My lord. Zhao Shuilong realized that he had made a mistake. This man was the leader of the group of four. He quickly put on a more respectful attitude. "I won't hide it from my lord. In this ruin, the plants will emit a strange glow, which will greatly reduce their combat power. However, those intact towers can resist the suppression of the plant's light. Therefore, if we want to enter the ruins, we must occupy the towers one by one and use them as our camp. Then we can slowly advance. My master has already occupied 17 towers and is close to the end of the first region. He can be placed in the first camp. Sirs, please reconsider." Only then did Zhao Shuilong reveal some crucial information, causing Ling Han and the others to be slightly shocked. So there was actually such a thing in these ruins. "I would like to ask the four of you to join his lord's camp to achieve a win-win future together." Zhao Shuilong bowed deeply again. Ling Han looked at the three women and said, "Let's go check out the situation first." The three women naturally wouldn't object, and nodded one after another. Zhao Shuilong was overjoyed, and hurriedly made an inviting gesture. "Sirs, please." He led the way in front, leading the four into the ruins. The moment they entered, Ling Han and the others immediately felt a strange power assault them. When they lowered their heads, they saw that their bodies were covered with a layer of purple light. It was as if they were made of precious jade and looked extremely beautiful. However, it was as if their bodies were wrapped in a layer of shackles, which greatly affected their battle prowess. With every passing minute and second, the layer of purple light would become thicker and thicker, putting more and more pressure on them. They would probably only be able to unleash 10% of their combat power, and most of their strength would be used to resist the purple light. Zhao Shuilong saw this and said, "Sirs, now you believe what I said is true, right? What are you showing off for?" Hunyo snorted and kicked him. Peng! Zhao Shuilong instantly fell flat on his face, and his face smashed into the ground. He hurriedly got up, glaring angrily at Hunyo, but when he thought of the aura that Hunyo emitted was far above his own, his anger instantly dissipated. In the end, who asked him to have such a cheap mouth? He obediently led the way in front, and not long after, a complete tower appeared in front of them. There were people guarding all around, and when it was Zhao Shuilong's turn, they relaxed slightly. Old Zhao, you've worked hard this time, inviting 3 pseudo-celestial kings, and 1 Lord Celestial King, someone called out to Zhao Shuilong. Zhao Shuilong put on a fake smile, and his lips twitched slightly in response. Ling Han looked closely, and saw that the tower was enveloped in a layer of brilliance, but it wasn't purple light, but a layer of white luster, making it seem as if it was independent of this world. When they entered, the people inside naturally wouldn't stop them, and once they entered, the purple light on their bodies immediately dissipated. It was really only a breath or two, and they recovered their full battle prowess. Ling Han and the others all nodded. No wonder the Celestial Kings had to advance step by step, occupying tower after tower along the way to advance towards the central area, because if they didn't do so, they wouldn't be able to hold on here. Please follow me. Lord Yang should have already received the news, and is preparing to receive the 4 sirs, Zhao Shuilong said. This was a 7-story tower. They were presently on the 1st floor, and under Zhao Shuilong's lead, they very soon arrived at the 7th floor. Once they exited the stairs, they saw a man sitting boldly facing them. Seeing the 4 of them come up, he didn't stand up, merely nodding and said, "I am Yang Gang." His eyes were only on bewitching Maiden Ro, as if Ling Han and the others didn't exist at all. This was understandable, because only bewitching Maiden Ro's body was entwined with a strange light, but Ling Han and the others didn't have any strange light at all. After becoming a celestial king, the great Tao of heaven and earth would entwine, and there would be a strange light that would appear. This was the most obvious sign of a celestial king. Thus, Yang Gang could tell with a single glance that Ling Han, the Empress, and Hunyou were only pseudo-celestial kings, even if the aura they exuded was very powerful, practically being celestial kings. Bewitching Maiden Ro immediately looked displeased, and pointed at Ling Han, saying, "This is my husband, and these 2 are my good sisters." Yang Gang was slightly surprised. With bewitching Maiden Ro's qualifications, she could completely find a 3rd heaven or even stronger celestial king as her Tao companion. Why would she lower herself to a pseudo-celestial king? He thought for a moment and suddenly understood. Those who had yet to break through to the immortal king stage were basically all aiming for that rumored perfect immortal seed. And to be able to obtain such information, one's background must be astonishing. Therefore, it was reasonable for a celestial king to be willing to throw himself at him. Yang Gang felt jealous in his heart. Why didn't he have a Tao companion of the celestial king realm? The discomfort in his heart was shown on his face. This is the first line of defense after entering the ruins. It concerns whether our supplies can be delivered in time. It is of great importance, so please guard this place with me. When the time comes, the central area will be opened and the 4 of you will be able to leave easily. Chapter 2470. Ling Han naturally would not agree. They did not come here just to leave the celestial path. They also wanted to see that perfect celestial seed, though they did not need this celestial seed to break through to the celestial king tier. If they stayed here, when the central area was opened, they would have a share of everything. Furthermore, such a strange phenomenon had occurred here. Ling Han believed that the treasure that appeared here would not be limited to a perfect celestial seed. So, he naturally had to go to the front lines, and with his personality, he could not possibly live a leisurely life in the rear. "The 4 of us still want to go to the front lines to shine," Ling Han said with a smile. Yang Gang's expression immediately darkened. "I am in charge of the daily affairs here. Is there anything you can refute?" He was a king on the celestial path, and was used to being proud. He naturally would not fear so-called 9th heaven celestial kings or heavenly venerables. So what if you had a powerful background? In Yang Gang's eyes, you were nothing. Ling Han shook his head. Those who walk different paths cannot make plans together. Since Brother Yang insists, then we will take our leave. Fortunately, he had held back, otherwise he would have destroyed the entire building. Yang Gang was even more displeased. "Who did you think you were? You were just a mere pseudo-celestial king, and you dared to call me Brother Yang? Brother Yang is not someone you can call." He attacked menacingly, grabbing towards Ling Han. "Get lost." Bewitching Maiden Ro rebuked, and also struck out with a palm. Her snow-white slender hand was as smooth as jade, but the attack she struck out was like a raging wave. She grabbed the Great Tao of Time and pressed it down towards Yang Gang. Yang Gang's attack immediately slowed down at a visible rate. He could not help but pale in fright. After reaching the level of Celestial King, all regulations were equal. There was no stronger or weaker one. Thus, even the once superior regulations of time were now no different from the regulations of metal and water. But bewitching Maiden Ro pressed the Great Tao of Time over, and he was affected. What did this mean? Since regulations were no longer superior or inferior, then it would depend on who had a deeper grasp of regulations. He was inferior to bewitching Maiden Ro. How was this possible? Only beings below the level of Celestial King could enter the celestial path. Then, even if bewitching Maiden Ro broke through the moment she entered the celestial path, she had at most 8,000 years. In 8,000 years, he had allowed the other party to surpass him in the immortal king realm. He had painstakingly cultivated in the first heaven for more than an epoch before he reached the peak of the first heaven. Why was his opponent stronger than him the moment he broke through? Yang Gang roared in fury. Boom, a burst of Celestial King Tier Chi surged out from his body. He had used all his strength, and had finally broken through the shackles of the flow of time that bewitching Maiden Ro had placed on him, and regained his ability to move. Bewitching Maiden Ro did not pursue him. The intention of her palm strike was to force Yang Gang to retreat. This was also because Ling Han did not want to shed all pretense of cordiality, so she would not go too far. Ling Han stood with his hands behind his back. "Brother Yang, do you still want to stop us?" A man needs to rely on a woman." "Shameless," Yang Gang said coldly, but he did not dare to attack again. Bewitching Maiden Ro's strength was above his, so making a move would be asking for humiliation. He looked at bewitching Maiden Ro. Could this be the monarch tier that the outsiders spoke of? His battle prowess was too strong. The Empress's expression involuntarily darkened. This person really had a foul mouth. She had already given him some leeway, yet he still insisted on seeking death? Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Just at this moment, a cry of surprise suddenly traveled out from below, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Ling Han looked out through the window of the balcony, and saw that there were indeed people attacking. There were not a few of them, and there were about 100 of them. The ones in the lead were 2 celestial kings, and the others were all ascending origin tier. Ling Han was slightly surprised. So be it those ascending origin tiers, but one of the 2 celestial kings was clearly an outsider. He had just broken through not long ago, and his aura was still unstable. This was very obvious. For the sake of leaving this place, and more so for the sake of treasures that might appear in the central area, the outsiders had also participated in this battle, and had even played the role of a lackey. Yang Gang's expression changed. The enemy had actually sent out 2 celestial kings, which meant that they were determined to take down this balcony. Furthermore, it was not a matter of a year or 2 that he had been overseeing this place. His background had definitely been figured out by others long ago, and now that the other side had sent out 2 celestial kings, they should have complete confidence. Thankfully, the side overseeing this place had a very large advantage. As long as they did not allow the other side to enter the balcony, then the other side would be suppressed by the power of the ruins, and their battle prowess would plummet. He might not necessarily lose even if he fought 1 against 2. He glanced at Ling Han and the others, hesitated for a moment, and finally gritted his teeth, not making a sound. If bewitching Maiden Ro wanted to make a move, he could not stop her either. Thus, he might as well pretend that these 4 people did not exist. He oversaw the 7th floor, and his celestial king divine sense was everywhere. No matter where the enemy attacked from, he would be able to react in time. Outside, over 100 ascending origin tiers charged towards the entrance of the 1st floor, and the 2 celestial kings split up. One attacked from above, and the other from below, wanting to attack into the building. It was too much of a disadvantage for them to stay outside. Boom, a celestial king was wrapped in ice, and his battle prowess suddenly soared innumerable times. He broke through Yang Gang's defenses and directly charged in. Ling Han was astonished. Just now, this celestial king had clearly ignored the suppression of the purple light. This was unreasonable. Yang Gang, meanwhile, was greatly shocked. You guys have really put in a lot of effort, even willing to take out the purple descent fruit. Under the suppression of the purple light, cultivators would not be able to use even 1/10 of their battle prowess. And according to the speculation of the celestial kings, this purple light was emitted by those plants, but as long as one consumed the fruits that grew from these plants, they would be able to temporarily ignore the suppression of the purple light. Of course, this was really only temporary, and the time would be pathetically short. Thus, they had the effect of subduing and dispelling the suppression of the purple light, and these fruits were naturally called purple descent fruits. But it should be known that those plants were very difficult to deal with, and even celestial kings could suffer a great loss. So how difficult would it be to obtain purple descent fruits? This kind of fruit definitely had to be stored away, and only consumed and fought for the sake of the appearance of a great fated opportunity in the future. Now, however, they were being used here, and it could be seen how determined they were to take over this place. Yang Gang, since you know our determination, why haven't you left yet? A celestial king shouted. Yang Gang humphed. Even if it is 1 against 2, I may not necessarily lose. Furthermore, I have already sent out a signal, and reinforcements will arrive soon. When he said this, he intentionally glanced at Ling Han and the others, meaning to say that they had also heard it, reinforcements were about to arrive, and they had better not think about doing anything strange. The 2 celestial kings also looked at Ling Han and the others, and when they discovered that there was another celestial king, their eyes involuntarily narrowed. Oh no, the information they had was wrong. How could there be another celestial king here? However, Ling Han waved his hand and said with a smile, "Don't worry about us, you guys do what you need to do, we are just passing by." Grandmaster Ling. The outsider's celestial king cried out involuntarily. He was a sovereign of the Eastern Celestial Realm, and it was indeed very rare for him to be able to break through to the Celestial King stage. Generally speaking, sovereigns needed to walk the celestial path more than 3 times before they could break through, and if even 3 times were not enough, then unless they were willing to stay on the celestial path forever, they would definitely not have the chance to become a celestial king. Chapter 2472. The moment Ling Han said that, Zhu Zishi and Yang Gang immediately revealed looks of anger and confusion. You are just immortal kings, and you have just broken through, yet you want to take down a camp? What do you think a camp is? Is it something you can take down just because you want to? Third Firmament immortal kings had to go through numerous bloody battles to be able to occupy a camp. This was because when these towers appeared, they were entangled with all sorts of plants that possessed immense power. They had to be cleared before they could be occupied. It was impossible for only Third Firmament immortal kings to do so. Yet, you want to take advantage of Third Firmament immortal kings? Aren't you courting death? The camp couldn't be lost. Others might not know, but these immortal kings who had stayed here for a long time were very clear. Every midnight, there would be an indescribable radiance circulating in the tower, allowing them to see the supreme Great Tao. There would be a mysterious fragrance that would increase their cultivation. Although it would only last for a short while, it was equivalent to millions of years of arduous cultivation for immortal kings. More importantly, it could help them break through. Furthermore, the more towers one occupied, the stronger the light and fragrance. This was the main reason why immortal kings had formed an alliance. But why not have all immortal kings work together? Ignoring everything else, just the combined forces of these Third Firmament immortal kings should be invincible. This was because the mysterious light and fragrance could only be shared with a limited number of people. Even if one occupied a large number of towers, it could only increase the effects of the light and fragrance. It could not increase the number of people who could share it. Therefore, a team could only have 10 to 20 immortal kings at most. Otherwise, everyone would have to take turns. Under such conditions, everyone could only fight separately. With Third Firmament immortal kings as the leader, there were several Second and First Firmament immortal kings. In addition, the closer one was to the center, the higher the quality of the towers. Therefore, there were low-level immortal kings guarding the periphery. Third firmament immortal kings fought in the towers for better quality. However, the closer one was to the center, the smaller the area. The number of towers would definitely decrease. Therefore, not only did they have to fight the mysterious plants, but they also had to fight powerful competitors. The battles were extremely brutal. Third firmament immortal kings had no time to intervene in the later battles. Hee, Master Ling really likes to joke. Zhu Zishi hurriedly laughed and tried to smooth things over. There was a faint smile on Ling Han's face. Although his knowledge was limited, he didn't believe that an immortal king would be sent to guard this place just for the sake of a foothold and a supply station. Furthermore, 2 immortal kings had been attracted here to topple the tower. There must be another reason. That was simple. He could just take it down and slowly study it himself. In this place, didn't the one with the biggest fist take over everything? Didn't the towers here all come down with their fists? Sometimes I do joke, but this time is obviously not the case. Ling Han swept a glance over them, then said to Zhu Zishi, "We are both outsiders, so let me give you a piece of advice. Join this place and become my underling, what do you think?" Zhu Zishi's expression immediately darkened. Although he called Ling Han Grandmaster, it didn't mean that he respected Ling Han that much. It was just that he might need Ling Han's alchemy skills in the future, so he was being polite. One had to know that he was now an immortal king. There was no need to say anything else. Was the title of immortal king not enough? Not only did this Ling Han not appreciate his kindness, he actually wanted to recruit him as his little brother. What kind of humiliation was this to him? He said darkly, "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Grandmaster Ling's good intentions. I have no intention of being anyone's little brother." He had broken through on his first celestial path, which showed that his talent was still very high. Then his future achievements would definitely not be limited to the first heaven. In fact, he had a chance of reaching the third heaven, or even the fourth heaven. How could he submit to others? Ling Han sighed. This guy really thought that he was insulting him. One had to know that monarch tiers like Yan Xianlu and Yi were all willing to be his little brother. Their future achievements would at least be the fifth heaven celestial king. Forget it, he had only spoken on a whim. He didn't really want such a mediocre person. Since Grandmaster Ling is so domineering, then why don't our 2 clans first call a truce and eliminate Grandmaster Ling and his group? Yang Gang suggested. These words were directed at Lu Ming. All right. Lu Ming nodded with a smile. There was only one celestial king among Ling Han's group of 4. If the 4 great celestial kings joined forces to deal with them, they could very quickly suppress or drive them away, saving them the trouble of reaping the benefits from the sidelines. Zhu Zishi did not speak this time. He thought that Ling Han had asked for this. A 5-star Grandmaster was indeed well known in the celestial realm, but in the celestial path, the 4 great celestial kings instantly turned from enemies to friends. At least, in terms of dealing with Ling Han's group, they were completely united. Ling Han smiled and tossed Little Terror out. Go! The little guy had long since grown impatient, and had been baring his teeth the entire time. Now that he had obtained Ling Han's permission, he immediately charged out on his 2 thick and powerful hind legs. He opened his large mouth, exuding a terrifying aura. The 4 great celestial kings simultaneously felt a chill run down their spines. It was as if their opponent was not a little beast that was only 2 feet tall, but rather an ancient mystical beast from the primordial times. His killing intent soared, and it was as if he was a tool of slaughter. They all moved, wanting to stop Little Terror from approaching. But what was Little Terror? It was a battle beast that had been specially created to deal with the Xian Ni plane. It was an existence that was even more terrifying than battle soldiers. Not only was its battle prowess on the level of Emperor Stars, but its defenses were also incredibly powerful. In fact, it could even compare to the physique that Ling Han had cultivated using the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Once such a battle machine broke through to the Celestial King tier, what kind of concept would that be? Its vitality was as high as 4,600 points, and its defenses were enough to make even a first heaven celestial king feel despair. It directly ignored the attacks of the four great celestial kings. When their attacks landed on its body, there was only a splash of dazzling light, and it was completely unable to wound in the slightest. Little Terror arrived, and it opened its large bloody mouth, biting down on Lu Ming. Lu Ming hurriedly grabbed a large path and whipped it over. However, it was directly bitten off by Little Terror, and it continued to bite down on his lower body. There was nothing that could be done. Little Terror was too short, and it could only aim at his lower body. Lu Ming's face turned green. If Little Terror bit off his lower body, how would he be able to face others in the future? Yang Gang and the other two great celestial kings attacked at the same time, and they attacked Little Terror at the same time. The three great celestial kings joined forces, and they still had some power. They managed to block Little Terror's figure for a moment, and only then did Lu Ming manage to escape. Little Terror was furious. This was the first time that it had attacked after becoming a celestial king, and it had actually returned empty-handed. It charged over again, and it was incredibly ferocious. So what if the four great celestial kings joined forces? They could only be chased away by Little Terror in a sorry state. Ling Han nodded. As expected of a being that had been specially created by the plane. It was truly extremely awesome, and it only lived for battle. However, it was also because of this that it had a very big limitation, and that was that its intelligence was slightly low. Otherwise, if it could also cultivate like Ling Han and the others, its battle prowess would definitely be even more powerful. One couldn't be too greedy. This kind of Little Terror was already very powerful. While he was daydreaming, the four great celestial kings were already at their wits' end. They were being chased around by Little Terror, and in the end, they had no choice but to jump out of the window and escape. Was even more refreshing. Chapter 2473. Ling Han didn't let Xiao Ku chase after him. There was no enmity between them, and they were just fighting over a tower. There was no need to fight to the death. He chased out all the subordinates of the other two immortal kings, and then began to search all over the place. Why does this look like a treasure? After a very long time, Ling Han came to a conclusion. That was because he had discovered a device that was similar to the core of a precious tool in the balcony. One could inscribe one's spiritual brand within it, and make it a part of their side. However, someone else's spiritual imprint was left here. It should be 9 Luo immortal kings. Ling Han didn't dare to be careless. Although he was very strong, he hadn't become an immortal king yet. A third heaven immortal king was too strong for him. He carefully touched the spiritual imprint. Hong, an ancient and weathered, will immediately rushed over, forming a gray-robed man in Ling Han's consciousness. He was only about 20 years old, and looked spirited and handsome, but his eyes revealed the weathered look that had broken through the mortal world. 9 Luo immortal King Ling Han smiled and cupped his fists. Greetings, Lord 9 Luo. 9 Luo immortal king also smiled. Since I appeared in your sea of consciousness, it means that you've already taken over this camp. Ling Han nodded. Yes. However, it's one thing if you can take over this camp, but it's another thing if you can take it for yourself, 9 Luo immortal king said proudly. Although I'm just a divine sense, you're only at the first heaven. You haven't become an immortal king yet. He felt an unformed immortal seed in Ling Han's sea of consciousness. The existence of this thing could only mean one thing. Ling Han hadn't become an immortal king yet. 9 Luo immortal king was very shocked. He clearly sensed that Ling Han's divine sense was extremely powerful and had definitely crossed the line of immortal king. However, Ling Han hadn't become an immortal king yet. This was extremely strange. What was going on? Ling Han said seriously, if Lord Jiu Luo is willing to part with your treasure and withdraw this divine sense, then I will owe Lord a favor. How about it? For a quasi-immortal king to dare say such words to a third firmament immortal king was hilarious. However, 9 Luo immortal king did not laugh. Instead, he was seriously considering the problem. After a while, he suddenly smiled. All right, I'll give this camp to you. However, I hope that you won't attack my camp next time. From his point of view, although Ling Han's current combat prowess was nothing in his eyes, he was still someone with lofty ambitions. He wasn't satisfied with a small place like the path to immortality. He wanted to obtain great good fortune and barge into the immortal realms. In that case, how terrifying would a person who had the battle prowess of a celestial king before becoming one? Ling Han's future achievements would be limitless. After weighing the gains and losses, he was willing to use a camp to exchange for Ling Han's favor. Xiao, his divine sense immediately left, shooting towards the center of the ruins like an arrow. This celestial king was quite interesting, Ling Han thought with a smile. If the 9 Luo immortal king was unwilling to retreat, he would not fear a battle. After all, he was only a divine sense, so how unimaginably powerful could he be? Ling Han branded his divine sense onto this tower. When he left behind his divine sense, he instantly felt as if he was connected to this tower, allowing him to obtain a lot of information. Ling Han was surprised to discover that the black tower that had been silent this entire time suddenly trembled lightly, but then immediately fell silent again. Strange. Had the black tower just so happened to wake up from a nap, or was it because he had taken this tower? Otherwise, this would be too much of a coincidence. But he had merely taken a tower, so why would the black tower react, even though it was incredibly weak? Forget it for now. Ling Han told the 3 women that there would be a phenomenon every midnight, and if they cultivated at this time, the effects would be greatly increased. This midnight was calculated based on the changes of day and night on the path to immortality. Thus, this phenomenon would only occur once every 3 days. They were only 18 hours away from midnight, so they waited patiently. When they reached this point, they saw a beam of light shoot down from the top of the tower, ignoring the existence of the floors, and directly reaching the first floor. At the same time, there was a strange fragrance that assailed their nostrils, as if it was going to make them ascend. Ling Han and the others all absorbed the beam of light and smelled the fragrance, instantly feeling the celestial seeds in their bodies rapidly growing. Bewitching Maiden Rose's celestial seed had already sprouted and grown, so this was of the greatest help to her, and her cultivation level was rapidly increasing. And because Ling Han and the others were still forming their celestial seed brands, though it was indeed of great help to them, it was far less helpful than Bewitching Maiden Rose, unless they were willing to immediately advance into the celestial king tier. Only Little Terror did not receive the slightest bit of benefit. He belonged to a different cultivation system, and even if Wally had improved on him, he had not condensed a celestial seed at all when he broke through to the celestial king tier, so he naturally could not receive any benefit. This kind of benefit did not last for long. After about 15 minutes, the beam of light suddenly disappeared, and the strange fragrance also quickly faded, no longer able to be smelled. "Should we continue forward?" the Empress asked. The deeper they went, the greater the benefits brought by these towers, but the more towers there were, the more wonderful benefits they could obtain. But Ling Han and the others only had 4 people. So what if they took down the towers? They did not have enough manpower and would not be able to defend them at all. If they focused on the front, they could not care about the back. No wonder the 9 Luo Celestial King had previously sent people to recruit passers-by. After all, there were only so many Celestial King tier-level battle prowess, and they urgently needed to be replenished. Should we go and recruit some helpers as well? Ling Han and the others decided to temporarily wait for a period of time. With their present battle prowess, they were still not enough to contend with 3rd Heaven Celestial King tier, so even if they ran to the center of the ruins, they would only be able to play a supporting role and would not be of any use. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed, and they had also obtained the benefits of the strange light and fragrance 5 times, allowing Ling Han and the others to speed up the process of perfecting their celestial seed brands, and Bewitching Maiden Rose was advancing towards the middle stage of the 1st heaven with her head held high. Originally, this process would easily take hundreds of millions or even billions of years, but who asked Bewitching Maiden Rose to cultivate the time celestial physique? Others could only cultivate for a moment, yet she could cultivate for over 100 times the time. How could this compare? Another few days later, Ling Han discovered to his surprise that there were currently 5 people coming over together. 5 Celestial Kings. Celestial King and Ming was unwilling to accept that his first attack had failed, and send out 5 celestial kings to attack again. However, even the combined forces of 4 great celestial kings had been chased down by a little fear, so what use was one more celestial king? When these 5 people walked a little closer, Ling Han couldn't help but be surprised, because he recognized all 5 of them. Yan Xianlu, Qing Zixin, Hao Xinjue, and Fu Zhou. They were all members of the Ling Alliance. Ling Han laughed loudly and leaped out. "Brother Ling!" And the others involuntarily exclaimed in surprise when they saw Ling Han, filled with joy. Come, quickly come inside." Ling Han called out. There was a suppressive purple light outside, causing one's battle prowess to plummet. Only the balcony here could withstand this kind of pressure. The group entered the balcony, and they all talked about their experiences on the way here. They were all filled with danger, especially Yan Xianlu, who had been targeted by Yu Wudi and the other 6 great celestial kings, and had almost been captured. "Brother Ling, you haven't fallen for it, right?" Yan Xianlu asked. When Yu Wudi and the others had attacked him, they had once revealed some vague words, wanting to use him to deal with Ling Han. Chapter 2474. It's fine. Ling Han smiled and shook his head. "Brother Yan, you don't have to take it to heart. Aside from Yu Wudi, I've already killed the other 6. Yan Xianlu was shocked. In the past, even when he broke through to the Celestial King tier, he could only flee, but Ling Han was clearly a pseudo-Celestial King, and he actually said he killed 6 Celestial Kings. This was too exaggerated, wasn't it? In a situation where the difference in cultivation level was not large, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for a Celestial King to kill another Celestial King. But was Ling Han the kind of person to boast? "Brother Ling, you're too extraordinary." The 5 Celestial Kings could only admire him. Ling Han smiled. If he broke through to the Celestial King tier, his battle prowess would soar to the peak stage of a second heaven Celestial King in terms of regulations, and in terms of physical techniques. Once the upper limit of his cultivation level was opened, he didn't know how strong he would become. This could only be known after he broke through to the Celestial King tier. Speaking of the benefits of this tower, and the others were overjoyed. They had not broken through for long, and needed to stabilize their cultivation level. This was their holy land for cultivation. Let's go to the next tower. After taking it down, there will be a resonance between towers that have the same brand, and you guys can rush over, Ling Han said. He was just worried that there was no one to help him guard the tower. Okay. And the others did not refuse. Ling Han and the others left, heading towards the center of the ruins. However, they did not advance in a straight line. Because he had promised the 9 fallen Celestial King, Ling Han did not plan to attack this Celestial King's territory. Otherwise, it would really be too much, and this Celestial King would retreat from the front to suppress them. At present, they were still no match for a 3rd heaven Celestial King. Under the suppression of the purple light, the battle prowess of Ling Han and the others all plummeted, but there was one exception. Little Terror. It could not benefit from the strange light or fragrance, but the suppression here was similarly ineffective against it, because it belonged to a completely different cultivation system. A large tree appeared in front of them. This tree was extraordinary. Although it was only 300 meters tall, the roots that protruded from the ground were like dragons, vigorous and powerful. The rhizome and trunk were purple in color and slightly transparent, as if they were made from purple jade. Its leaves were like long spears, emitting a dense killing intent. Among these leaves, there were some fruits that were as red as fire. This was the descending purple fruit. After consuming it, one would be able to resist the purple light for a short period of time. In this region, the descending purple fruit was extremely useful. Ling Han and the other 3 approached. No matter what, they had to prepare some subduing purple fruits. Shwa, 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 the tree seemed to have come to life. The crown of the tree shook slightly, and instantly, hundreds of leaves shot towards Ling Han and the others at an astonishing speed. These leaves were originally shaped like spears, and as soon as they were shot out, they grew in the wind and grew to a length of 30 feet. They were completely black, like inky iron. Ling Han took a step forward and reached out with both hands. He casually grabbed a great dao and turned it into a shield, protecting himself and the three women. As the leaves fell, the shield of laws immediately weakened at a speed visible to the naked eye. The consumption was astonishing. Pung! The shield quickly reached its limit and suddenly shattered. However, Ling Han had already grabbed another great dao and continued to use it as a shield in front of him. They were already closing in, and the Empress and the others all charged out. Even Little Terror also rushed out, opening his mouth and biting down on the dragon-like roots of the tree. Boom! One root after another shot out from the ground, wrapping around the Empress and the others like giant pythons. Each root was covered with purple seals, and exuded an astonishing might. The battle immediately erupted. Although the Empress and the others were very powerful, this tree was even more extraordinary. It was said that only a third heaven celestial king could destroy it and pluck its fruits, so it was clear how powerful it was. Moreover, the purple light pervaded the air here, suppressing everyone's strength. This made this tree even more difficult to deal with. Thankfully, Little Terror's battle prowess wasn't affected. He bit down with his sharp white teeth, and a great deal of wood shavings fell off, causing the majority of the tree's power to be used against him. In fact, Ling Han's body technique wasn't affected by the purple light either. However, he hadn't unlocked the upper limit of his cultivation level, so his body technique could only be limited to a vitality index of 4,999. He could barely be considered a celestial king tier level, so there was a limit to how much he could display his abilities here. Now, he had returned to his old habit of using regulations as his main battle prowess. The 5 celestial king tier level battle prowess joined forces against the tree, yet they couldn't gain the slightest bit of advantage. The tree was really too powerful. From time to time, it would shoot out countless leaves, and use them as flying arrows to injure their opponents, catching them off guard. Fuck, could it be that this damn tree's leaves are endless? It's been so long and it still hasn't become bald? Ling Han couldn't help but grumble. Although the tree's leaves were dense, it should have become bald after shooting out several hundred leaves at once. However, it was still flourishing and there was no sign of it becoming bald at all. After fighting for a good half a day, the tree suddenly trembled, and a few fruits fell off. It stopped attacking. What does this mean? I'm not playing anymore. Ling Han and the others also stopped. Bewitching Maiden Row also picked up Little Terror in passing. The little guy was still biting on a tree root, and refused to let go. Although there are only 4, their sincerity is already quite good. Ling Han picked up the fruits and gave one to each of them. The tree wasn't defeated, yet it chose to retreat. It was probably because it didn't want to waste time with them. Could it be that this tree also had intelligence? Ling Han smiled at the giant tree. Brother tree, thank you very much. The tree swayed as if it was looking down on him. The 4 of them continued forward. There were actually many plants here, but the majority of them didn't bear fruit. Thus, Ling Han and the others didn't have any desire to attack. They continued forward, and after walking for a good half a day, a 7-story pagoda appeared in front of them, exuding a bright green light. There were people in the pagoda, and all of them drew their weapons, revealing expressions of wariness. Are you the 9 Luo Celestial King's men? Ling Han asked. This was called being polite before resorting to force, lest they hit the wrong people. Those guards looked at each other, and shook their heads at the same time. Someone shook the weapon in his hand. Please leave, the 4 of you. They didn't fly into a rage, mainly because they had bewitching Maiden Row, who was surrounded by extraordinary splendor. This was the sign of a celestial king, so naturally no one dared to be careless. There had to be a celestial king standing guard here, but he didn't make a sound. Naturally, he didn't want the matter to escalate. As long as Ling Han and the others were willing to leave, he definitely wouldn't attack. Ling Han nodded. That's good. It would be embarrassing if we attacked another camp. He strode over, not showing any anger. Stop, stop. Those guards all shouted, but they weren't too nervous. After all, Ling Han wasn't a celestial king, and he was only one person, so did they need to take him seriously? Seeing Ling Han approach, the guards moved at the same time, all brandishing the weapons in their hands and attacking Ling Han. Ling Han cracked a smile, and power burst forth. Pung! It was only a single punch, and those guards fell to the ground like flowers scattered by a celestial maiden. He took another step, and had already entered into the pagoda. Xiao, a terrifying aura circulated, and a celestial king flew down. His eyes were fixed on Ling Han, and he revealed a cold smile. He didn't say anything, and directly launched a palm strike at Ling Han. Chapter 2476. Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch sneered. If I want to leave, do you think you can stop me? He forcefully broke through and was about to charge out of Ling Han's consciousness, but just as he reached the edge, he was suddenly knocked back as if there was an invisible wall blocking him. Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch was not surprised that he was blocked. This was Ling Han's consciousness, and he could create all obstacles with a single thought. But the key was that he was a third heaven celestial king, so how could Ling Han stop him? Ling Han strode over. I already said that if you were polite, you would naturally be able to leave, but you insisted on courting death. After fighting with me for so long, you still want to leave? His consciousness was cultivated with the indestructible heaven scroll, and when it was actively activated, it was like an impregnable fortress to a first heaven celestial king, unshakable. I don't believe it. Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch roared and charged forward again. How could Ling Han allow him to do as he pleased? He pounced forward and attacked Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch, not giving him a chance to attack. They were all formed from divine sense, so there was no such thing as vital points. Instead, their entire bodies were vital points, and they would be injured if they were hit. After countless attacks, Gloomy Frost's exhaustion was so great that it was difficult for him to maintain his human form. He swayed and looked like he could dissipate at any time. Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch roared angrily. The value of this divine sense was actually to bring back information, and it did not affect his main body's battle prowess. However, as a third heaven celestial king, his divine sense was about to be severed by a pseudo-celestial king. How could he endure this? But the situation was stronger than he was, and it was useless no matter how he shouted. Just as Ling Han had said, if he had chosen to leave from the beginning, he would naturally be able to do so with his peak battle prowess. However, he was already at the end of his rope, and he still wanted to leave? It was impossible. Ling Han attacked again and again. Although Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch resisted tenaciously, it was useless. He was finally killed, and he let out an indignant roar, but that was all he could do. In the center of the distant ruins, Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch was suddenly stunned. He was almost struck by a vine that was hundreds of thousands of meters long. Fortunately, there was a third heaven celestial king beside him who helped him in time and resolved the danger. Otherwise, he would definitely be lightly injured. Dao brother Yoshuang, what's going on with you? Another immortal king asked. They were in the midst of an intense battle against a powerful enemy, yet he was distracted at such a time? Yu Shuang Immortal Monarch frowned. A trace of my divine sense suddenly disappeared. The other immortal king also frowned. There's actually someone who can prevent your divine sense from returning. Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch nodded. I can sense it. This trace of divine sense is left in the outermost camp. Could a powerful immortal king have circled behind us? Another immortal king found it unbelievable. Although it was only a spiritual will, its combat strength had reached the peak of the first firmament. Only a second firmament immortal king could slay it. The battle here is more important. We have to take down this pagoda no matter what, and then deal with this matter, said Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch. The battle here is more important. We have to take down this pagoda no matter what, and then deal with this matter, said Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch. The two celestial kings looked up at the same time. In front of them was an 18-story pagoda. It was completely golden and shone with divine light. However, there was a huge vine wrapped around the pagoda. It was hundreds of thousands of meters long and had countless roots. These roots were fighting with many celestial kings at the same time, and their battle strength was extremely terrifying. And in the surrounding area, there were 11 such pagodas, and they were also engaged in the same intense battle. After Ling Han killed Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch's divine sense, he naturally imprinted his own divine sense on it and replaced it. Immediately, he sensed an indescribable resonance from the first campsite in the distance. 1. The Black Pagoda trembled slightly again. If the first time was a coincidence, then the second time was definitely for a reason. Why did the Black Pagoda suddenly react? Could it be that there was a treasure here that could restore the Black Pagoda? It was not impossible. It was said that there was a great opportunity here, and the flawless celestial seed was only one of them. There was also a technique that could allow the local celestial kings to leave, and the buildings here could allow celestial kings to advance rapidly. Then, there might really be something good that could restore the Black Pagoda. Heavenly Venerable Ling Han instantly felt an itch in his heart. What could it be? The four of them stayed here. When midnight came, they saw light descend from the top of the pagoda, and a strange fragrance wafted. The four of them hurriedly absorbed the benefits. There really was something different. The two pagodas were resonating, causing the density of both the light and the fragrance to increase greatly. A rough estimate was 20%. No wonder the celestial kings wanted to take down more buildings. When the light and fragrance disappeared, Ling Han couldn't help but feel unsatisfied, and said, "Come, we have to take down more campsites." The three women nodded, similarly filled with fighting spirit. Wait for Yan Xianlu and the others to send people over. Because there was an obvious change, there was no need to inform Yi and the others. They should know that Ling Han and the others had taken down another campsite. Furthermore, there was a mysterious resonance between the two, so locating them was definitely not a problem. Ling Han and the others only had to wait a few days. True enough, a mere 2 days later, Yi, Yan Xianlu, and Hao Xinjue had already arrived. Now, they had as many as 10 Celestial King tier-level battle prowess here, so they could be more generous and have 2 Celestial Kings stand guard at each campsite. After waiting for another day, and cultivating with the light and fragrance again, Ling Han and the others set off together with it. In any case, they had formed an enmity with the Gloomy Frost Celestial King, so they would advance in a straight line. Rather than lightly offending a few Third Heaven Celestial Kings, it was better to heavily offend one of them. Along the way, there were many plants that had not been cleared. Some were short and not more than a foot tall, while others were several hundred meters tall. They waved their long branches as if they were demonic creatures. This created some trouble for Ling Han and the others, but they were all Celestial Kings, after all, so they still managed to pass through without much trouble. Close to 3 days later, they arrived in front of a small palace that was wrapped in green light. The palace only had 1 floor and was 30 meters tall and 300 meters wide. The palace doors were wide open, and there were 2 men standing guard. However, it was unknown how many people were inside. When it came to the 2 Celestial Kings in Ling Han's group, the 2 men's expressions suddenly changed drastically, and they hurriedly made a ruckus. Immediately, a Celestial King appeared. He blocked the way in and looked coldly at Ling Han and the others. "This palace already has a master, so please change your path." As long as he occupied the entrance and did not move out of the way, he would be able to maintain his full battle prowess. He was also a First Heaven Celestial King, so how could he be unable to defeat 2 opponents whose battle prowess had been weakened by 10 times? Yi strode over and raised his fist. "We are here to snatch territory, so let's fight." He charged out and immediately unleashed his full battle prowess, attacking fiercely. However, although he was an Emperor Star, he had just reached the first firmament. Furthermore, his battle prowess had been weakened by 10 times, so he was unable to match the Celestial King in front of him. No matter what he did, he could not break through. "Little fear, go," said Ling Han with a smile. The 3 days were almost up, and he did not want to waste an opportunity to absorb the light and fragrance. Chapter 2477. Little Terror pounced out. It was not affected by the purple light here, its battle strength was not affected at all. It suddenly became a mess. That immortal king was shocked. He did not expect this little beast's battle strength to be so shocking. He did not know if Little Terror would be suppressed by the purple light here, If they fought inside the building, Little Terror's battle strength would increase by many times. Little Terror unleashed its might. How could that immortal king guard the entrance? He was immediately forced into the palace. This time, Yi's battle strength was completely unleashed. As a monarch's strength surged out, he worked together with Little Terror and sent that immortal king flying out of the palace in a few moves. The immortal king ran for his life. Ling Han was familiar with the place. He found the control hub here again. He used his mental power and led the wolf into the house. A divine sense formed and appeared in Ling Han's sea of consciousness. It was Dark Frost Immortal King. "Yo, we meet again." Ling Han greeted. This divine sense was left behind by Dark Frost Immortal King a long time ago. He did not know what happened after that. He was very confused. What did he mean by again? Then he became furious. A mere quasi-immortal king dared to touch his territory. A mere quasi-immortal king, you are really seeking death, he said in disdain. This reaction was exactly the same as the first time, as expected of the same person, the same personality, the same response. Ling Han had a strange expression. If he swept through Dark Frost Immortal King's 10 camps and his divine sense reacted like this every time, wouldn't it be very funny? Let's fight. He was too lazy to talk nonsense. This had already happened once. What was the point of doing it again? He took the initiative and grabbed a few laws, turning them into sabers, spears, swords and halberds as he attacked Dark Frost Immortal King. A mere quasi-immortal king actually grasped so many laws. You are truly extraordinary. Dark Frost Immortal King raised his brows. He was very surprised. Ling Han sighed and said, "You've also said that before." Gloomy Frost Immortal Monarch snorted. He also controlled laws to fight against Ling Han. His strength was extraordinary. Ling Han could not suppress him at all. He could only exhaust his strength before killing him. But after fighting for a while, Yu Shuang Immortal Monarch could not conceal his shock. A pseudo-immortal monarch's battle strength can actually reach such a level. You must have obtained some kind of peerless inheritance. His face was filled with excitement. He wanted his main body to charge over and take all of Ling Han's secrets. Ling Han nodded. That's a new reaction. I hope you'll have a different reaction the next time we uproot your third camp. Arrogance. The gloomy Frost Immortal King smirked coldly, and a boundless tide surged behind her, smashing towards Ling Han. Every drop of water was condensed with regulations of the Great Tao, and if an ascending origin tier cultivator was hit by it, it was guaranteed that they would die instantly. Ling Han was naturally unafraid. He also circulated the water laws and transformed it into a monstrous giant sword that slashed at the raging tide. Boom! The raging tide was forcibly slashed apart, and Ling Han broke through forcefully, blasting towards Yu Shuang Immortal King. Yu Shuang Immortal King was shocked. Why did this brat seem to be a parasite in his stomach? No matter what he attacked, he would immediately counter it, as if he had known him for tens of billions of years, understanding him clearly and thoroughly. He naturally didn't know that Ling Han had already battled with his first divine sense for a very long time, so he naturally had a very good understanding of him. However, to him, Ling Han was a complete stranger, and this caused the two of them to be placed in an unfair position. The two of them fought fiercely, and Yu Shuang Immortal King gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. His every move was targeted by Ling Han, and he could not reverse the situation no matter what. The more Yu Shuang Immortal King fought, the more apprehensive he became. It was as if he had really been thoroughly studied by Ling Han, and all of his reactions were under his control. He thought of Ling Han's words again. Could it be that Ling Han had really already uprooted one of his camps? No, he had to return to his main body. This brat was too freakish, and had a great secret that might surpass the treasures hidden in the center of the ruins. Once this thought appeared, he immediately turned around and ran. It was just a divine sense, and he could come and go as he pleased. Ling Han laughed loudly. He had invited him into his trap, so how could he let Yu Shuang Immortal King escape? He had already set up an inescapable net in his mind. If Yu Shuang Immortal King immediately fled once he entered, then Ling Han would not be able to stop him before he finished setting up. However, after fighting for so long, It was impossible for Yu Shuang Immortal King to escape. After another 100 moves, Ling Han destroyed this divine sense and pressed his divine sense onto it. Instantly, the black tower trembled as expected. Coincidentally, just as he finished this movement, he saw a strange light shoot down from above, and a fragrance spread. In the center of the ruins, Yu Shuang Immortal King was startled again, and was almost sent flying by a vine. "Brother Yu Shuang, what's wrong now?" The third heaven celestial king beside him frowned. "Was this alliance reliable?" "Another of my camps has been taken," Yu Shuang Immortal King said with a dark expression. The celestial king beside him was surprised. Could it be that someone was deliberately targeting them? They had actually taken 2 of Yu Shuang's camps? Was this a provocation? "After taking down this pagoda, I'll definitely kill my way back," Yu Shuang Immortal King said menacingly. He humphed and vented his anger on the incredibly powerful vine in front of him. Boom, cold air swept out, and his battle prowess was extremely terrifying. Ling Han and the others absorbed the benefits of the strange light and the strange fragrance. With 3 buildings resonating, the benefits increased by almost 60%. Even if it was only 30 minutes, they could use the acceleration of the flow of time, and their improvement was extremely shocking. Of course, Yu Shuang Immortal King was not one of them. He did not have a time constitution. Cultivating at this time was extremely beneficial to condensing a celestial seed. Ling Han had a feeling that if he cultivated like this a few hundred more times, he would not need to fight for that perfect celestial seed at all. His celestial seed would definitely be flawless. There might be a treasure that can awaken the Black Tower here. If I only have my current strength, I'm completely unable to fight against a third heaven celestial king. I have to become a celestial king. Give me some more time. Ling Han did not want to waste time. After he finished cultivating, he had Yi stay behind to keep watch, while he continued to advance with the 3 women, striving to build a new camp every 3 days. Of course, these camps were definitely Yu Shuang Immortal King's territory. If Yu Shuang Immortal King knew about this, he would definitely be furious. How much effort had he spent to build these camps in the past? Not only did he have to fight with others, but he also had to spend a lot of effort to get rid of the plants that had taken up residence on the buildings. This could be said to have been exchanged with blood. Ling Han and the others soon found the next building. There was no need to ask. The celestial king that had been guarding the palace previously was here. The 2 great celestial kings blocked the door, wanting to stop Ling Han and the others. This was naturally futile, and very soon, Ling Han and the others broke through. It was the same when he erased Nether Frost Immortal Monarch's divine sense. This immortal monarch was extremely arrogant at first, but he realized that something was wrong and wanted to escape. In the end, it was impossible for him to succeed and he was killed by Ling Han. This time, Ling Han and the others slowed down slightly and waited for Yen Xianlu and the others to catch up from the front. They waited for 11 days, and when Yen Xianlu and the others arrived, Ling Han discovered to his shock that their group had actually grown many times stronger. Chapter 2478. In this team, there was not only Yen Xianlu and Fu Zhou, but also the Rain Emperor, Ji Wuming, Shichanzi, and Jialan. Ling Han swept a glance over and discovered that the Rain Emperor and Ji Wuming were still pseudo-celestial kings, but Shichanzi and Jialan had already advanced into the celestial king tier. With their imperial star aptitude, the celestial kings that they became were naturally incredibly powerful. He went out to welcome them and invited them into the palace. After a round of conversation, he found out that the Rain Emperor had met Ji Wuming and the others at the borders of the ruins. They had heard about the ruins and planned to join forces to conquer a few camps for fun. In the end, the first camp they encountered was where Yen Xianlu and the others were stationed. After talking to each other, they naturally couldn't fight. We have a strong army now, so let's hurry and occupy the territory below, Ling Han said smilingly. Everyone nodded proudly. Not to mention that there were still a few pseudo-celestial kings here, all of them with imperial star aptitude, and would definitely become 9th heaven celestial kings in the future. How could they take mere 3rd heaven celestial kings seriously? Even if they couldn't compare now, it wouldn't take too long for them to catch up, and they wouldn't have to fear these so-called overlords. Before setting off, Ling Han learned about everyone's battle prowess. The Rain Emperor and Ji Wuming were the same as him, wanting to take the path of gathering the essence of thousands of celestial seeds and then condensing their own celestial seeds. Though they hadn't truly formed a celestial seed, their vitality index had broken through the barrier of 5,000. One was as high as 5,400, and the other was even as strong as 5,500. Additionally, Shichan Zi and Jialan also had such plans under Ji Wuming's guidance, but this showed their limitations. They very soon reached the end of this path. Though they had indeed gathered the essence of a few celestial seeds, the quantity wasn't very large and definitely couldn't compare to Ji Wuming, Ling Han, and the others. But even so, their battle prowess after breaking through to the Celestial King tier was incredibly terrifying. Their vitality index had reached 6,200, and this was the battle prowess of a second heaven Celestial King. These two were naturally the strongest in the team now, and below them were Ling Han, the Empress, Ji Wuming, and the others. Their vitality indexes were all around 5,500 and 5,600, and they didn't have any obvious shortcomings. Fu Zhou was left behind to oversee this place. They set off in a grandiose manner, continuing their sweep. With their current lineup, it would be easy for them to attack any campsite. Second Firmament and Third Firmament Immortal Kings were fighting in the heart of the ruins. The ones presiding over the campsite were only First Firmament Immortal Kings. How could they stop Ling Han and company? They quickly conquered the fifth camp. In the center of the faraway ruins, Dark Frost Immortal Monarch, the other Third Firmament Immortal King, Ling Han and the others rested here for a while. If they were exposed to the purple light for too long, their bodies would be greatly affected. They would become tired, and even their cultivation would regress. Who would have thought that while they were reorganizing, their team would expand again? The fire hibiscus made an unexpected appearance. She was just like Ling Han and Ji Wuming. Even though she was still a quasi-immortal king, her vitality had soared to over 5,500. She didn't know exactly how much it was, but in any case, she should be very, very strong. Ling Han nodded internally. This was how all celestial venerables had broken through in the past. That was why they would let their juniors take this path. Even though Ji Wuming didn't have a celestial venerable background, he had been the strongest celestial king for so many years, so he naturally had his own understanding. Fortunately, Dongfang Rei and Xian Rong didn't follow behind the fire hibiscus. Otherwise, Ling Han definitely wouldn't allow them to join his team. The fire hibiscus was still like a little girl, but the aura she exuded was incredibly terrifying. Even Ji Wuming was unwilling to approach her. She was only a quasi-immortal king. If she really became a celestial king, how powerful would she be? After a short rest, they set off again and easily conquered the sixth camp. However, their good luck came to an end here. Very soon, Ling Han discovered that he had lost contact with the first campsite. That sliver of his divine sense very quickly returned, letting him know that a force had sent out 3 celestial kings, defeated Hao Xinjue, and erased his divine sense. The other party had also sent a second heaven celestial king, which was why the divine sense that Ling Han left behind was no match for them. However, it still flew back and brought back the news. Otherwise, they would have to wait for Hao Xinjue to come over and explain things in person. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. They were raiding someone else's territory, but they couldn't avoid being raided by others. There was nothing they could do about it. We can't swallow this loss. Fight back. Everyone shouted. Which one of them was willing to suffer a loss? They were either Emperor Stars or Emperors. There were even Super Emperor Stars. They were the only ones who could bully others. Fight back. Ling Han nodded. This time, they had to hurt the other party and let them know that they couldn't touch their territory. They had to establish their might in one battle. They left one person to oversee the camp, while the others fought their way back. Of course, they didn't waste the benefit of once every 3 days. When it was almost time, they would stay in their camps for about half a day. One reason was to cultivate, and the other was to recuperate. After all, the purple light was quite annoying. 10 days later, they arrived at the first camp that belonged to them. There was a second heaven celestial king overseeing the camp. He didn't hide his strength at all. From afar, they could see the two-colored light on the tower. This was a clear warning that first heaven celestial kings shouldn't throw away their lives. Under the suppression of the purple light, a first heaven celestial king was no match for a second heaven celestial king. It was possible for them to be killed instantly, and they couldn't even escape. Kiran and Shirchanzi joined forces. Only the two of them had reached the second heaven, so they were naturally the main attackers. The two of them ate a subduing purple fruit each. They immediately ignored the suppression of the purple light and charged into the tower. After an intense battle, the second heaven celestial king overseeing the camp was chased away. The camp returned to Ling Han and company. Ling Han imprinted his spiritual will, announcing that this place truly belonged to them again. Which faction did the second heaven celestial king belong to? Immortal King and Ming. Back then he had sent people to conquer this place, but Ling Han had interfered. He wasn't willing to let the matter rest, so he sent a second heaven celestial king. He thought that victory was in the bag, but he didn't expect Ling Han and company's strength to soar. They were chased away before they could even warm their seats. Should we switch to another immortal king? Everyone felt that they shouldn't let Immortal King and Ming off so easily. They should at least destroy 7 or 8 of his camps to vent their anger. They were all lawless people. When one of them made a ruckus, the others didn't object. Therefore, they changed their route and began to destroy Immortal King and Ming's pagoda. With their strength, they had conquered 4 cities in just over 10 days. This nearly infuriated the distant Immortal King and Ming. However, the battle ahead was too grim. Even a second heaven celestial king would put him under immense pressure. How could he attack personally? He had no choice but to swallow this grievance. Now, Ling Han and company had occupied 10 camps. They were all buildings in the periphery. However, they also realized that the increase in numbers was no longer able to increase the benefits of the strange light and fragrance. 9 camps is the limit. Only by obtaining the buildings in the center of the ruin can the benefits continue to be magnified. Chapter 2480. The imprint of the celestial seed in Ling Han's body was already close to perfection, but he had no urgent need to become a celestial king, so he had not broken through. But he was continuously chased by Dongfang Rei and 2 celestial kings, and this made him furious. This also made him have a strong desire to break through. He wanted to become a celestial king, and then beat up those bastards. His celestial seed should already be flawless and perfect, and did not need to be perfected anymore. It was just that becoming a celestial king was too important, and there was no turning back, so he was very cautious and did not take the step. But with Ling Han's personality, once he made up his mind, he would not hesitate. He immediately began to break through. He released his cultivation, and his aura instantly rose infinitely. In the sky above his head, dark clouds rolled, and lightning flashed. The heavenly tribulation was forming. This was the celestial king tribulation, but because Ling Han was too powerful, this did not seem like a new celestial king tribulation at all, but a second heaven-level tribulation. Clang, the lightning fell, and turned into a giant, holding a sharp sword, and slashed at Ling Han. Ling Han gave a long howl and met it fearlessly. On the other hand, he still had to materialize the imprint of the celestial seed in his consciousness, and then use the power of the heavenly tribulation to grow it. How far it could grow would depend on his talent and luck. This was the fastest time for a celestial king to grow, and after this stage, he would have to take things one step at a time. Ling Han used his time celestial physique. This half a day was too important for him, and not only could he not waste a single moment, he had to think of a way to extend it. He was immediately hit by the heavenly tribulation, and his whole person disappeared, and a huge pit, 100 zhang deep, appeared in the ground. But it was only for an instant, and Ling Han immediately scuttled out from the ground, straight into the clouds, and fought in defiance of the heavens. Undergoing the heavenly tribulation here was actually very disadvantageous for Ling Han, because under the suppression of the purple light, Ling Han's battle prowess had dropped to 10%, and he was not a match for the heavenly tribulation at all. But he clearly knew this and still wanted to break through here, so naturally he had his reasons. The more difficult the conditions were, the more one would be able to achieve breakthroughs by going against the flow. Moreover, Ling Han also wanted to know if the purple light would affect his heavenly tribulation. This was because it was said that the purple light was emitted by plants. If they were targeted by the heaven and earth, then the plants would have to undergo heavenly tribulation. And in the center of this ruin, a large number of immortal kings were also fighting with these plants. Would they also be involved? The scene would be lively. It was a pity that even though the violet light affected Ling Han, the heavens and earth did not get angry. They did not give the plants heavenly tribulation, making Ling Han feel quite disappointed. Ling Han was resisting the heavenly tribulation with all his might. Otherwise, the power of the heavenly tribulation at the level of a second heavenly immortal king could even kill him. It was true that he liked to take risks, but he had no intention of throwing his life away. On the other hand, he was speeding up the formation of the immortal seed brand in his sea of consciousness. Rumble, the heavenly tribulation unleashed its might, as if it didn't want to let a monster like Ling Han break through. Bolts of lightning rapidly struck down, creating strands of the great path of lightning that slashed towards Ling Han. Ling Han was neither angry nor shocked, and he simply focused on doing what he was doing. He was struck by the heavenly tribulation until he floated around like a piece of straw. His whole body was covered with charred marks, and from his appearance, he looked more like a piece of burnt wood. His life aura was extremely weak, and it was as if he was about to die. The immortal seed brand was formed by countless lines, and it was incredibly complicated. Now, only the last line was left. With this line, it would no longer be an immortal seed brand, but a true celestial seed. The heavenly tribulation became more and more rapid. Once Ling Han broke through, his strength would definitely break some kind of balance, so the heaven and earth had to stop him. Countless lightning giants surrounded Ling Han, continuously using lightning swords, lightning spears, and lightning sabers to attack him. They wanted to kill him. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, forcibly raising his defenses. Then he completely gave up on resisting, and focused all his attention on the formation of the last line. Even if it was just the last line, if this line did not land where it should, then the battle prowess that Ling Han had become a celestial king would drop at least tenfold. It was precisely because it was so crucial that Ling Han would focus all his energy on the formation of the immortal seed brand. This was the most crucial moment. He used his divine sense to guide, and an incredibly dazzling line formed out of thin air. It began to connect the last two nodes, and complete the embryonic form of the celestial seed. Boom! The aura that he exuded was practically incomparable. It was as if he could crush the stars in the 9 heavens into pieces with a light shake. In the distance, Ji Wuming, the Empress, and the others were all spectating. This guy is indeed extraordinary. Shi Chanzi looked shocked. He has just broken through to the celestial king tier, but the might of the heavenly tribulation is comparable to that of a second heaven. If I had not seen it with my own eyes, I would really not have been able to imagine it. Ji Wuming did not speak, but his eyes were brimming with fighting spirit. Ho Farong shook her head. This brat's freakish talent has not been revealed yet. I have a feeling that his strongest aspect lies in his physical techniques, and not the power of regulations. When these words were spoken, everyone was greatly astonished. It should be known that a great tribulation on the level of the second heaven descended upon Ling Han the moment he advanced into the celestial king tier, which meant that his battle prowess was incredibly frightening. But she actually said that this was not Ling Han's strongest power? How could they believe it? But these words were said by Hua Farong, so who would dare not believe her? The Empress, Hu Niu, and bewitching Maiden Ro all showed expressions of pride. Ling Han could use the intrinsic power that only heavenly venerables could come into contact with, and this far surpassed the level of regulations, so he was naturally incredibly awesome. The heavenly tribulation became more and more violent, determined to blast Ling Han to death. The lightning giants blasted in unison, and even if Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, it was useless. Very soon, his power was exhausted, and that layer of golden light on the surface of his body immediately dimmed. Shwa, these lightning giants blasted again, and thousands of lightning blades descended towards Ling Han. Oh no! Everyone's expression changed. At this moment, it was the most critical juncture for Ling Han. If he resisted the heavenly tribulation, then his efforts to condense the celestial seed could be completely wasted, but if he still ignored the heavenly tribulation, then it was possible that he would be struck to death. This was a dilemma. Yet Ling Han showed a smile. He drew upon the great Tao of time, and his divine sense entered into another level, transcending time itself. Everything seemed to have stopped. Even the attacks of the lightning giants had become as slow as a snail. The reaction of Ling Han's body was naturally incredibly slow, but his divine sense surpassed all this, and most importantly, condensing the celestial seed was an action of divine sense. An incredibly brilliant light shone in his mind, connecting the last and most crucial two nodes. Suddenly, the celestial seed was finally formed. A powerful aura surged out from Ling Han's body. He was already very strong in the first place, but now he had advanced another level. Celestial King Tier. At this moment, Ling Han could be considered to have truly advanced into the Celestial King Tier. His mind relaxed, and he immediately exited this state. Hong hong hong. The attacks of the lightning giants immediately accelerated and flashed towards him. Ling Han was unafraid and raised his fists to meet them. Chapter 2481. Peng, Peng, Peng. Ling Han attacked aggressively and instantly delivered over 1,000 punches. With the support of his powerful physical arts, his punches could be so swift. One after another, the lightning giants exploded. Not a single one was a match for Ling Han. Shi Chanzi and Jialan were instantly shocked. Though they could also defeat celestial kings with battle prowess in the early stage of the second heaven, it was definitely not something that could be done with just a few punches and kicks. However, Ling Han instantly destroyed over 1,000 such existences. What kind of concept was this? Even Ji Wuming and the Rain Emperor's eyes narrowed. They were shocked by Ling Han's battle prowess. Only Hua Farong remained calm. She was confident that if she advanced into the Celestial King Tier, her battle prowess would definitely not be weaker than this. Firstly, Ling Han was indeed strong enough. After advancing into the Celestial King Tier, his vitality had also improved greatly, reaching over 6,600. Secondly, the lightning giants were not real living beings, after all. They were merely a mass of energy and would shatter upon receiving a heavy blow. However, this did not hinder Ling Han's strength. He instantly destroyed over 1,000 lightning giants and was terrifyingly strong. However, the heavenly tribulation did not stop. Long more lightning giants appeared, but their battle prowess could not possibly increase anymore. They were still in the early stage of the second heaven. How could this still injure Ling Han? He made a casual move, and with a punch and a kick, he destroyed a lightning giant. Passing through the heavenly tribulation was like child's play. He was clearly only a celestial king of the first heaven, and had just broken through. If he reached the peak stage of the first heaven, would he be able to battle a celestial king in the early stage of the third heaven? Ling Han was currently urging the growth of the celestial seed. This was the fastest time. If he missed this opportunity, there would not be another one. He resisted the heavenly tribulation, turning the lightning into nutrients. This was the power of heaven and earth, and was naturally most beneficial to the growth of the celestial seed. Visibly, the celestial seed was germinating. First, 2 embryonic leaves grew, and then roots sprouted. They took root in Ling Han's consciousness and continued to grow. Half a day passed and the heavenly tribulation dissipated. Ling Han's immortal seed had already turned into a sapling. It was only half a foot tall and had a dozen or so new green leaves. However, it naturally had an indescribable supreme aura. Ling Han closed his eyes and sensed the strong power in his body. From the state of the immortal seed, he should still be in the early stage of the first heaven of the immortal king realm. If one had to break it down further, there were 10 steps in the early stage. Now, he had taken 7 steps and was close to the middle stage. This was extremely shocking. Others would need at least a few million years to complete the initial stage, but if he borrowed the help of the strange light and fragrance here, he should be able to complete it within a few years. This comparison was very obvious. What's more important? Once he unlocked the upper limit of his cultivation level, his body techniques would experience explosive growth, and the divine demon sword would also become a true celestial tool. With all these factors stacked together, who knew what heights his battle prowess would reach? Ling Han couldn't wait any longer. He took out the plain scroll and wanted to absorb the power within it to improve his physical skills. Hee, so you guys are here? A familiar sneer rang out. He saw Dongfang Rui and the 2 second heaven celestial kings chasing after him. They had naturally sensed the commotion caused by Ling Han's tribulation, which was why they had rushed over so quickly. However, they were still a bit too late. Ling Han had already completed his tribulation. You've broken through. Dongfang Rui looked at Ling Han. There was a strange light wrapped around his body. This was the most obvious sign of a celestial king. He frowned at first. It was too difficult for a celestial king to kill a celestial king. Without the suppression of the third heaven, it was practically impossible. However, when he thought about how the suppression here was especially severe, and how Ling Han had just broken through, he was definitely not used to the majestic power of a celestial king. It was not impossible for him to be killed. Ling Han broke into a smile. Today, I'll settle all the debts. He then looked at the 2 second heaven celestial kings. If the 2 of you don't want to die, scram as far as you can. The 2 celestial kings were sensing Ling Han's aura. He was clearly only a first heaven celestial king, but he made them feel a strong sense of dread. However, when they heard Ling Han's words, they were naturally displeased. No matter how strong he was only a first heaven celestial king. Where did his courage and confidence come from? I don't believe it. A mere first heaven celestial immortal. Bam! One of the second heaven celestial kings was about to express his disdain for Ling Han, but his vision blurred. An iron fist had already attacked him at an incredible speed. When he tried to parry it, he discovered that he could not move a single finger. The surrounding space had been completely bound. After that, he felt his body become heavy, and he was blasted flying. The other second heaven celestial king also wanted to express his opinion on Ling Han's ignorance and arrogance. However, he had only just opened his mouth when he witnessed this scene. Instantly, his words were stuck in his throat. Damn, is this really a newly advanced celestial king? He felt a chill run down his spine when he sent an existence of similar strength to him flying with a single punch. He could not help but sweat profusely on his forehead. Dongfang Rui was also stunned. He knew that Ling Han was an emperor star. Once he became an immortal king, he would definitely be mighty and domineering. However, he never imagined that he would be this powerful. Even a second heaven celestial king was not a match for a single punch. Ling Han smiled and walked towards the second heaven celestial king. What did you want to say? Just say it. I promise I won't interrupt you. I'll let you finish speaking before I beat you to death. This was a blatant threat. Yet this was very effective. That celestial king wiped away his cold sweat and wanted to say a few words to not weaken morale, but he kept thinking about Ling Han's punch just then, and more cold sweat poured out of him. Although the punch was extremely fast and caught his companion off guard, it was not as if his companion had no time to react. His body seemed to be imprisoned, and he could not move at all. Spatial laws. It was difficult for celestial kings to kill celestial kings. That was because if the weaker party sensed that something was amiss and immediately fled, it would be extremely difficult for the other party to catch up. However, if the 2 parties were too close, and the stronger party happened to have grasped the spatial laws, the situation would be completely different. It would be difficult to escape under the spatial shackles. This was equivalent to cutting off his path of retreat, and it was very likely that he would die if he tried his best. The second heaven celestial king naturally did not dare make a sound. He had never sold his life for anyone. He was a domineering lord on the path of immortality. How could he be willing to sacrifice his life for someone else? Ling Han retracted his gaze from the celestial king and stared at Dong Feng-ru. He did not say a word, but Dong Feng-ru's body involuntarily trembled. An indescribable chill surged in him. So what if he was once invincible in an era, known as the strongest below celestial king, and had a heavenly venerate father? Could heavenly venerate Feng Qing kill his way here to save him? He was decisive, and took out his celestial tool. Then he unhesitatingly released the suppression of his cultivation level, and began to break through to the celestial king tier. If he did not become a celestial king, he would only be killed by Ling Han. As for the other two celestial kings, it was clear that he could not count on them. One had been severely wounded, and the other did not dare to make a move at all. A smile appeared on Ling Han's lips. With a shake of his right hand, the divine demon sword was already in his hand. He exerted force in his right hand, and Xiao, the divine demon sword, was thrown out by him. Xiao, it was imbued with various regulations such as time, space, and so on. In a flash, it appeared in front of Dong Feng-ru. Pooh, it directly pierced through the top of his head. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.